Tonight on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live, from the Granite State, we enter the final 3 weeks of the regular season as drop weeks start to become a factor. For those above the top 8 playoff cutoff line, it's in these next few weeks where you hold your breath and hope to avoid any critical mistakes. On the flip side, well, the drivers below the cut line, desperation is starting to kick in. We get the home stretch to the playoffs going tonight from the New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the 10th race on this, the 2017 NASCAR PEAK Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing. Before we do, let's take a look back 2 weeks ago from Sonoma in this week's iRacing race recap.
We'll see when will Zach Novak launch our round number 9. It is going to be as soon as he clears the corner. He is off and away here at Sonoma. We are green, green, green for our one road course of the season. He has cleared Michael Conti by 2 cars, and they're heading up that very dangerous uphill corner.
Now the question is, how many people make it through this corner and through the uphill section? The top 5 get single file. It's side by side, back around. Jake Sturgis. Sturgis will clear Mullis. Ottinger follows through. And everybody throughout the top 10 single file. It gets a little close around. It looks like Kenny Humpy. They're side by side behind him. It's Clampett and Challenair going side by side.
Michael Conti, I mean, he is absolutely on the car of Zach Novak right now, and he is hustling him through the S's. He's trying not to keep on the back of that Toyota too closely. You really don't want to in case they manage to catch a curb like he did right there, and that was intelligent driving from Michael Conti just to lay out the accelerator when he really could have driven the point home. We are only on lap number 8 of 55 here from Sonoma, and here he goes. He's leaning to the inside. Will he get it? He will pull fully alongside. He'll get the run to the inside curbs, and he will get the whole shot coming out. Will he get the run? Yes, he will. Zach Novak, he will concede the position 10. New leader, Michael Conti.
Big puff of smoke coming out of that number 5 car of Conti. That's going to end his day here at Sonoma. Man, oh man, we saw it with Dylan Duval a couple of weeks ago where he had that issue at Pocono where he double downshifted and it ended his day. So could it very well be another possible double downshift or something of the likes from Michael Conti that put him out? There's the second straight race where we've had a front runner end up going out really early.
The last couple of laps, you're really starting to see a defined line of rubber developing on this track, which of course we have to remember the iRacing surface modeling to the exact metrics of where the rubber is getting put down, how the tires are putting down, how these Goodyear Eagles are running over this racing surface, and that is really going to change the track as we go, as well as the dust, Tim. We have to remember, of course, this racetrack can be perfectly green if it gets rain, but if not, it's going to be dusty and it's going to be sandy. We haven't seen a lot of sand drift up onto the circuit as Zach Novak gets a little bit loose on the run down to 11, but either way, this track condition is going to be changing as these cars develop.
As you see right there at the top of the hill, Vincent will gain a couple of car lengths and is now within 1 car length of Novak for the top spot in this one as Novak slides again, and here comes Vincent. Vincent looking to the inside. Novak all kinds of out of shape, and it'll be Vincent going to the lead. Here comes Zielinski. Zielinski will pick up second. Novak will fall to third, but Cam, it could have been a lot worse. That thing looked nasty. There you go, Cam. Bobby Zielinski was pressuring Corey Vincent, and now he takes the opportunity at the end of lap 20 to come down onto pit road and surrender what is second place. And as Conti mentioned, Vincent and Zielinski have been close in time. So does this force Corey Vincent's hand like we would see on an oval, or does Vincent stand for a few laps?
Tim, it looks to me like pitting a little bit earlier ended up paying off. Bobby Zielinski, we haven't really talked about him that much because he's been leading the darn thing. He's about 1.1 second lead over Corey Vincent. He's been doing so since the pit stop cycle. He's managed his way through the cars, but either way, battle still ongoing. Those Christian Challenair is on the rear of Jimmy Mullis.
Yeah, and those two going right at it here, and Challenair going to take a wide line into 7 here and going to try and get the run down through the S's. Challenair all over the back bumper of Jimmy Mullis, and Mullis just trying to run the defensive line through the S's here, and we're running out of time for these guys now. Challenair going to look to driver's left. Not going to happen this time. They'll come through 10, and maybe Challenair going to try the dive bomb here. He's going to get a decent run through there. Challenair looking to maybe right side this time. He's going to dive it in there. And it looks like he's going to get the inside line. Mullis going to fight back, though. They touch, and Challenair is going to hold on to the position.
Yeah, Jake Sturgis and Logan Clampett battling for a position, and They're working through some lap traffic as well. Sturgis has Hill right in front of him as Sturgis pitches it in underneath the 4. The 44 of Clampett is there. I think Clampett might have an opportunity to challenge for position number 6, and if they can get on their horse, he might be able to get 5th, but wow, the 4 car of Hill, the 41 of Sturgis nearly had a moment coming to the start-finish line.
Yeah, and they're still trying to get around that lap car of Timmy Hill. Meanwhile, actually, they're going to force their way around the car, and actually, there's an incident coming up the hill, actually. Timmy Hill not happy with that one. Bobby Zelensky, on top of taking the victory, he will almost certainly be taking over the championship lead for round number 9 here in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. It goes to Bobby Zelensky. His number 83 car will take the victory at Sonoma.
The road to $10,000 continues tonight from the Granite State for the 10th race of the 2017 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing. This is the New Hampshire 150. Good evening, sim racing fans, live from the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. RaceSpotTV, happy to be with you as we close in on the start of the playoffs for iRacing's Oval World Championship Series. Happy to be topside with you once more. Myself, Evan Posocco, as always, alongside with Mr. Cam Walsh and Tim Terry. In the booth downstairs is Hugo Louise. Coming off of a very different kind of race, Cam, 2 weeks ago at Sonoma. That was one of the dates on the calendar that got a lot of talk at the beginning of the season for having its first appearance. We can return now to a racetrack that has been on this calendar for quite some time, but is very unique in its own right.
Absolutely, and hello everybody. Yeah, that was a good time 2 weeks ago, I have to say. It was real fun to be over there in California now, all the way across the United States to Loudon, New Hampshire. But yeah, the Magic Mile gets its name for certain reasons. You're going to see cars on the top and the bottom in this track, I have a feeling, and it's going to be a good race no matter which way you look at it.
This is a racetrack that has been on the calendar 5 years prior to this and has never seen a repeat winner. Josh Berry, Derek Wood, Michael Conti, Alex Warren, and Logan Clampett are drivers that have found wins in this series. And Tim, a couple of those names could really use some points. After tonight, only 2 races left until the top 8 drivers get an invite to the first ever NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series playoff. Bobby Zelensky into tonight at a comfortable position, leading the championship standings. Ray Alfala, Logan Clampett, Corey Vincent, Zach Novak, Ryan Lewis, Marcus Richardson, and Derek Bordeaux. Those top 8 at the moment. Keep in mind that there will be a drop week come the end of these opening 12 weeks. But for those that are outside, and even more specifically for those right off of the cusp, a Christian Challoner, 5 points off. A Dylan Duvall, 22 points off. Really needing some strong finishes.
Shearburn has been close as well. He's continuing to work his way up the standings. Everything gets close from 4th on back and all the way back to about 10th or so, and then you work in that top 20 bubble as well to get into the series for next year. Lots to talk about points. It shook the standings up at Sonoma, and I'm sure the Magic Mile is going to do its favor here too.
We've got plenty of action to look forward to tonight, and with that, qualifying earlier this evening and now the warm-up session have drawn to a close. Let's go trackside, take a look at your RaceSpotTV starting grid for the 10th race on 2017. Ryan Luza will start from pole position tonight, his 28.610 besting everybody else. He will be joined on the front row by the fastest driver in the warm-up session. Matt Busa will start in second. Nick Ottinger, Bobby Zelensky, the two names we were just talking about, going to make up row 2. They'll start third and fourth respectively. Right behind them, Ray Alfala starting fifth. Alongside him, Chris Shearburn in the sixth position. Dak Zovac going to start in seventh spot tonight. He's got Taylor Hurst on row 4 with him, who was starting at number 8 spot, making up row 5. P9 in qualifying for Brian Schoenberg, and Michael J. Johnson rounds through our top 10.
Corey Vincent, the number 10 car, he will start in 11th. Logan Clampett, he will start in the 12th position. Brad Davies in 13th. Jimmy Mullis in 14th. David Rattler, he's starting 15th. Mitchell Hunt back in the 16th position. Jake Sturgis, he'll start 17th. Dylan Duvall in the 18th. Philip Diaz 19th. And Christian Challier in 20th.
3 wide Daly, Byron Daly rolls off 21st. 22nd is Marcus Richardson. 2 former series champions in Kenny Humpy and Michael Conti next, with Chandler Krizik at 25th, Chris Overland 26th, Will Cooley at 27th, Brian Blackford 28th, Trey Edson in 29th, and completing your top 30 to 4 is Timmy Hill.
Andrew Fash going to find himself 31st. Adam Gilliland, Jake Nichols, Brandon Schmidt, and Alex Bergeron through the top 25. Nolan Scott, Joe Lottarello, Tyler Hill, PJ Sturgis, Derek Bordeaux through 40th. Shotgun tonight way back at 41st and then 42nd. Ryan Lowe and Casey Tucker. Going to take us about 159 miles to get around this joint 150 times. And as we are every single week, we're so happy that you're joining us tonight on RaceSpotTV and iRacing Live. The iRacing.com official pace car going to duck down to the safety of the pit lane, and the field is going to be in the hands of Ryan Luza. For the second time this season, the number 1 qualifies up front. He will bring us to the American Ethanol Green Flag. We are underway from New Hampshire for race 10 on this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series, and your control car is off and away. Single file for the top 2. Husa slides into second, first fight for third. First time down the long back straightaway. Side by side, Ottinger and Zelensky going at it.
Great jump from Ryan Michael Luza, really putting his foot down here to start this. I did see some serpentine right about position 10 on back, as we're seeing a lot of these guys jockeying for position back there. It looks like the front 10 right now is just about to get into single file, heading into 1, finishing out the first lap, but still tons of 2x2 action from 10 on back.
And you would expect everybody to want to try to get themselves single filed out and get in that preferred lane. The top 10 looks like they've done so pretty good. The top 2 really the only ones separating themselves though early on. Third on back though, while they are single file, it's a pretty bumper-to-bumper line. Take a look at the 11 of Brad Davies, one of the closest battles up to the front of the pack. He was just able to get in front of Michael J. Johnson that lap, so plus 2 spots for Davies early in this race. And now the 44 Logan Clampett already working with a little bit of front end damage on that 44 Chevrolet. He's the next driver to jump up at a 39, so Johnson really struggling topside.
And keep an eye on Logan Clampett here this evening. Won this race last year, working up towards the front of the field this year, wants to go back to back, and it would help his efforts a little bit to give him a little bit of insurance heading in to the playoffs to lock himself into the top 8. He makes that move and moves up a spot, brings Jimmy Mullis along with him behind. Michael Johnson still struggling on the outside. It's now Mitchell Hunt to the inside as they go toe-to-toe at a corner number 2, and just behind them, it looks like it's Cody Bias. Dylan Duvall checked that. He was another driver that didn't have the week that he wanted to at Sonoma, and now he's trying to work his way up to at least the top 10 at his home racetrack in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series.
Just scanning through the top 10, everybody so far continuing to run single file up there. Still seeing that 71 machine of Mitchell Hunt try to work around the 39. And again, Johnson's car has some pretty significant damage. We saw, and I noted that the 44 Clampett had some damage on the front end. So obviously a couple of drivers got together in the opening 2 laps or so of this race. Good news is all 42 drivers that were on the grid were able to get off relatively cleanly on that start. All of them still being scored on the lead lap. No big problems this early on as Ryan Luza tries to set the pace and work out towards a green flag stretch. 150 laps on the board here tonight from the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Plenty of time though for Matt Busa to hang out P2. The top 2 really pulled it away. Now they're a second clear, a third on the back as Luza continues to walk what's about a 6-car advantage in that fight.
Nick Ottinger has been holding on to the inside line from Ray Alfalla the last full lap and a half now. As Nick Ottinger, he's continuing to hold that inside line. Perhaps could lose it to Ray Alfalla this time by. Yes, he does. So that's one position up to Ray Alfalla on the outside. I wouldn't be too surprised if we don't see that, at least in the starting stages, until this track gets a little bit worn in here. As Ottinger, well, one position back, Ray Alfalla one position up. Does that mean that Alfalla's got the speed and he's going to move his way up to the front? Well, I'm not quite sure just yet. He seems to look like it, though. He's managed to catch Bobby Zelensky just like that.
And they work themselves up to about that third lane down in quarters 3 and 4. You're really going to get a good look at how this racetrack rubbers in as the night goes on, because the lighter colored of the racetrack at the inside with the double compound surface of asphalted granite, so you'll really be able to see the line darken up at the bottom in contrast to how dark that top lane of the racetrack is. Caution flag, though. Problems at lap number 8. Get to slow things down. It's on the back straightaway, and a 4 may be involved.
So the caution flag flies for the first time here this evening, and while those drivers up front were trying to gain a little bit of track position, trying to pick off laps, Evan, it looks like those guys in the back a little bit patient.
Yeah, back at about 28th spot is where Timmy Hill was, and it was side by side, a couple of rows deep. Take a look on your replay there now. Hard to tell if it was the 8 who pushed up or maybe the 4 who chopped the nose a little bit, thinking that he was clear. Nonetheless, contact between Timmy Hill and Adam Gilliland, and it sent the 4 car around, and he did loop it on the inside of the racetrack. That's what brought out the caution flag. No real big problems for Adam Gilliland, maybe just a little bit of cosmetic front end damage. He did end up in the grass, though. Did not spin around, really didn't have any further issues. So 2 cars tangle. Early caution flag here tonight from Loudon. Drivers down pit road and got snookered out of that one. Ryan Luza comes down from first. Busa, Zelensky jump out from behind. Alfalla also going to stay out. Ottinger and then Shearburn in from 6. So a split decision inside of the top 10. Busa was committed until the last second. Juked himself out. He'll go to the race lead.
Yeah, I gotta say, this is interesting here. Only 10 laps having been ran. As just going to take a look to see exactly who gets off of pit road first. Obviously, it should be Ryan Michaeluza. He's got nobody around him, but Brad Davies is actually closing in. No, it will not be Ryan Michaeluza. Okay, I'll eat my own words. Brad Davies is the first off with Jimmy Mullis and Dylan Duvall and Mitchell Hunt there as well. Interesting decision here, Evan, for these guys to come in and get some tires. I have to say probably what had happened with Luza is he took 2 tires. Everyone else, or took 4 tires. Everyone else took 2. I see Brad Davies, he took 2. Jimmy Mullis, he took 2. Dylan Duvall took 2. Mitchell Hunt took 2. Whereas Ryan Michaeluza took 4 tires. And Chris Shearburn also took 4 tires. So interesting strategies in the first 10 laps of this race.
Yeah, those 2 drivers who beat Luza off of the pit lane decided to go with right side tires only. A handful of drivers go with 2 tires, the 11, the 40, the 42, the 71, and the 01 of those who pitted. And not only was it interesting that they pitted after such a short amount of time, but also that they decided to go with 4 tires, Tim, because we only had 8 laps to complete it to that point.
And there wasn't many drivers that did come down and take the opportunity to come down onto pit road, so it might not be necessarily a bad call. Ryan Luz is going to refire from position number 12 here with the 2 drivers in front of him taking 2 right side tires, as you mentioned. So I thought more would stay out, but right now we're going to have that top 10 out there on the racetrack or so with what they had when they started the race, and it looks like we're already getting doubled up.
Doubled up, getting set to go back green, so you'll be able to keep an eye on that 1 for the outside of row 6 and 12th. He is the first driver on 4 fresh tires. We'll see just how good that is compared to the 2 tires from Davies and Mullis in front of him, 10th and 11th, and then for the top 9 drivers who elected not to come down to the pit lane. So pace car going to duck off and away this time. Matt Busa, who was fast in 2nd spot, pulled away from Zelensky when they were 2-3. We'll go to the restart, 1-2. Green flag flies as we get things back underway. Beautiful restart for the 34. He'll pull up into quarter number 1. He's got the lane all to himself. Meanwhile, on the inside, Alfalla wants to challenge Zelensky, who goes wide.
Yeah, they almost looked like they were going to go 3 wide for a little bit. Ottinger actually had to back out, so yes, they were for just a moment's breath, but Zelensky there, he ended up going a little high at the start of that through 1 and 2, and he lost some speed, but I have to say, Matt Busa, he's up front, but Zelensky is able to really catch him on the entries to these 2 corners, and Alfalla, well, now this is the reverse of the battle that we saw earlier between Nick Ottinger and Ray Alfalla, only because this time Alfalla's on the inside, Ottinger's on the outside, and I have to say, I think Alfalla might pull one out on Ottinger once again because he's looking to get that position.
What we saw in the first start of this race at the outside of the racetrack was really not the spot you wanted to be in. On the bottom, you could do right there what Alfala's doing. Force the driver on your outside up. They're running a lot higher in 3 and 4 than they are in 1 and 2. Caution, though, going to come out once again as they race side by side. More problems towards the back of the pack. This one, a couple of cars.
Yeah, we had Chris Overland go around off one other car, had a little bit of contact, I believe, with Jimmy Mullis going into the corner. The 47 car spins around, collects the 78 and a couple of others as they go by. A little bit of minor damage there. And then we had, I believe, Shearburn hit the pit wall coming out of corner number 4. So it starts with the 47 of Chris Overland. This racetrack is pretty tight, Evan. Everything happens just so quickly.
In the 47, it was in kind of a slow slide in the center of the corner. Nobody had an opportunity to get away from him. And the 35, as you noted, Shearburn, who honestly takes the biggest hit in all of this, also got turned by the 5. He then got hit by the 44, so that only compounds the problems that Logan Clampett was already having. He picked up some damage on the opener restart in this race, and that's how the 34 ended up driver's side first into the tires at the end of pit road. So Shearburn going to be down pit road because of that, obviously going to be searching for repairs. That run going to be so short, though, that I wouldn't expect drivers who stayed out on that first one to really be flocking to pit road. Obviously, if you were in the accident, which started just outside of the top 15 or so, then you'd be in a position to want to come down pit lane nonetheless. But that one, very similar to what we saw in the first accident. The other one happened 8 laps off for the restart. This one came 4 laps off for the restart, but it all had to do with people still being double file off of a restart, not being able to get away from each other, and just a little bit of contact at such a flat racetrack with virtually no lateral grip to hang on to these cars. Those cars just spin right out.
Yeah, I've seen about 11 cars come down pit road, just for the record. Andrew Fayosh, Kenny Humpy, Edson, Timmy Hill, Lowe, a couple of other cars that were not involved in this at all. Jake Sturgis, obviously Shearburn, and Logan Clampett, they're getting their service, as well as Chris Overland, as they'll send their cars back out, either just so they don't go a lap down and then they can come in and get more repairs. For Logan Clampett, I mean, this is not the day that he wanted to have starting. Obviously, he started in 12th, and now he's going to be plummeted well to the back of the field, and especially with front-end damage. I mean, this track may only be 1.06 miles on the odometer, but still, you're going to need at least a bit of a front bumper.
Into tonight, Clampett sits 3rd in the championship, but in all honesty, that's only 26 points above the final transfer position down at 8th where Eric Bordeaux sits. So that incident dropping Logan Clampett all the way back to 41st on the racetrack. That's the kind of evening that you cannot afford to have. And not only in these final 3 races for the drivers in those qualifying positions as of now do you not want to have problems, but wins can help. They don't lock you into the playoff, but for each win you have, it'll be 3 bonus points going into the opening round of the championship that starts at Darlington. The pace car going to duck off once again. We'll see if Busa can replicate the start from last time. 0 hesitation. He is gone. 16 laps complete as the 34 leads to 1.
Down into corner number 1, Ray Alfala going to try to use that inside line to take it away from Bobby Zielinski on the outside. Ottinger is side-by-side with Zach Novak. Great run so far for the 15 car as he'll relegate that position. Taylor Hurst will go to the outside of him. Zielinski still holding on over Ray Alfala. It's going to get close down here into corner number 3. Zielinski's going to try to get that run off of the corner. Looks like he'll do so. Move the 83 to second, and here comes Ottinger. Ottinger fills a hole on the outside.
And that battle that we were watching before the yellow came out is able to resume with the 05 at the outside and the 2 on the inside. Also side by side behind them, a battle between Taylor Hurst up top and Zach Novak at the inside. It's a battle for 3rd and 5th, respectively. Looking like Alfala, though, again, working the bottom of the racetrack. Pulled about a half a car length of the 05 down the back now in the setup of 3 and 4. Just trying to get clear of the 05, though. Looking for a better run off in the corner, keeping him honest.
That number 34 Toyota Camry, Matt Busa's doing a fairly good job this time, as last time Bobby Zielinski was all over him. But right now he's sitting just to the outside, I have to say, of the second dotted line through the corners, and he's able to get a good exit. He's got right now about 0.3 of a second over Bobby Zielinski, and he seems to be working fairly well. And Nick Ottinger and Ray Alfala, these guys, pretty much the entirety of this 20-lap race so far, Evan, they have been fighting with each other in some form or another. This time, though, Nick Ottinger ends up getting the point from that one as he now puts himself up to 3rd position, though. Meanwhile, Taylor Hurst and Jimmy Mullis look on.
I don't know if the two necessarily gave up the spot to the 05, but it braked early into 3. Either just wanted the 05 to get by, or if he was really trying to back up the quarter. But nonetheless, as noted, Ottinger gets sole possession of the number 4 spot, and now side by side again, just behind him. Here comes Mullis. Started this race at 14th position, gets real tight on the door. The 74, Taylor Hurst, not giving him much room between his right-hand side and the outside of fence. They'll go side by side for 5th, and again, the inside prevails. So just laps after the 74, Hurst passed him on the outside after the restart. 40 comes back, gets the spot, and goes +1.
Mullis has been doing a fine job here so far this evening, consistently moving his way through the field, and now he finds himself, as you mentioned, in position number 5. Those passes continue to get harder as they come closer towards the front of the field, so we'll see what he can do with Ray, Nick, and the bunch of others up in front of the field. First side-by-side battle now belongs to Ryan Luza and Michael Conti. Conti on the inside trying to pick up a spot. Former winner here at Loudon, and he had a tough break a couple of weeks ago at Sonoma with the double downshift, putting out his gearbox. So we'll see if he can make his way back up closer to the front of the field and try to put Sonoma behind him.
A little bit deeper in the pack, he got that 5 of Conti, and he's kind of working on the 11 and the 1 at the same time. He's out of line, despite the fact that we keep saying the inside has been the place to be in these battles. The 11 and the 1 were more in line with the likes of the 15 at Novak in front of them, and the 70 with a bunch of Hunt behind them. You see the 5 kind of by himself, much lower than the preferred line down at this end of the racetrack. So he really wants to get a pass done on the 11 or the 1, but it might be tough for him to find a spot. He's got a great run to turn 3 this time. Might be able to get the job done as he enters low. The outside's able to stay there just by the run off of the corners, but that 5 had a great run at it too, carried the speed down the long straightaway. He executes the move that time at a 4, so creeping his way forward is that 5 for Conti.
Yeah, and it's constant battles. I see somebody leaving pit lane. Is that Logan Clampett? Yes, it is. So Logan Clampett, he's going to go a lap down that car, needing more service than he'd like. And just up ahead, it's Christian Chandelier. And PJ Sturgis is there going into corner number 3 and 4. The 57 at PJ Sturgis, not the season that he would have liked at all. Qualified not at all. He didn't put a time in, so he started at 39th, I guess I should say. He's up to 17th right now on the inside of Christian Chandelier as they're getting off the throttles and into corners number 1 and 2 once again. Sturgis, well, he's working that inside line. I'm seeing that inside line start to come into play here, as I've noticed Ryan Michaeluza has also gotten past Brad Davies.
Just an update on the one of Ryan Luza, because we were talking about how good those tires would be for those that did elect to pit after the caution. That came out after the open at 8 laps in this thing. Luza was the first driver on 4 fresh tires. Since then, we've had a caution, a flag, and another restart. He's gained 2 spots. After restarting in 12th initially, he runs in 10th. So, at least at this juncture, it appears the decision, better call maybe, would have been to not come down to the pit lane. We'll see if he's able to work his way back up front. Another change for position inside of the top 10. Michael Conti going to get another one, this time on Corey Vincent. That peak entry started 24th. He's 7th at lap 26.
And he'll try to move through the field one more spot to pick up 1 on Taylor Hurst just in front of him, as Ryan Luza and Zach Novak are going to go side by side just behind. It'll move Luza up 1, and Conti, as we say that, will move 1 past Taylor Hurst and try to chase down this battle for second place. And this has been pretty intriguing the last couple of laps, Evan. Bobby Zielinski going into 1 and 2 a couple laps ago went high into the corner. It closed in Ottinger, it closed in Ray Alfala, it closed in Jimmy Mullis, and now they battle for that second place spot. But it looks like Zielinski, after that little miscue a couple laps ago, it's gotten a little bit better. He's got a couple of lengths on the 05.
Well, Ottinger's keeping him honest that I think the 05 really has no other option but to force the issue with him, because again, he has Ray Alfala all over the mount, but the 2 gave him 2 good fights off for 2 restarts. Not going to matter. Caution flag flies 3rd time tonight. It's down the back straightaways. We look for the cause of that one.
It is the number 55 of Brian Schoenberg. He had some help, though, from Derek Bordeaux. Bordeaux was on the inside line. Schoenberg, not sure necessarily. He might have. It's a toss-up for who came down or who came up. But either way, though, Schoenberg got a little bit of a bumper on his right rear, and that ended up spinning him out. He tried to gain the car under control. Almost went back into traffic, but thankfully he was able to wrangle it away. And as such, Brian Schoenberg is now going to be losing quite a bit of those positions, and have tires that are far hotter than they should be.
And very similar to the first accident, the driver who makes contact for the back end is able to get away okay. The driver who got turned is the one who loops it around. That one very similar to what we saw for the first time. That's the second incident that's happened down at that end of the racetrack. Speaking about pit strategy, lap number 29, drivers are in, and it looks like everybody is going to be coming down pit road. That includes drivers who pitted earlier and everybody who did not. So Busa assumed the race lead when Luza pitted at lap number 10. He comes down pit road as the race leader now at lap 30.
We'll see what happens here and see who will win the race off of pit road and get a little more track position as Busa's into his box, going to get service on that race car, and we'll see if he can come out with 2 tires. He will, and he will win the race off pit road. We'll see what everybody else does behind him, Evan.
Now, the 2-tire call for me is interesting. Second off of the pit lane is going to be Luza. He goes with 2 tires also, and I have to wonder, Cam, how much of that might have been influenced by just how good tires were when people pitted for the first time. Because, again, we were just talking about Luza on that last run. First driver who went with 4 tires when they pitted very early on. He didn't make up a lot of time. The drivers who went with 2 tires on such little runs themselves, who restarted in front of him, were able to maintain those positions. So even for somebody like a Matt Busa running 3 times as many laps, decided that the time was not worth it to wait for 4, and it looks like most of the drivers up front were in agreement on that 2 was the way to go.
Yeah, I saved about 6 seconds off of Bobby Zelensky, who had taken 4 tires, but this is kind of the interesting thing to note here. Bobby Zelensky took 4 tires. Well, he's going to be in 3rd position. So what was really the gain from just taking only 2? Not quite sure, but you know what? I have a feeling, though, we'll see if Matt Busa gets another good start like he did the last time, and if he can build a little bit of that buffer, a little bit of that space that he needs to draw the line that he wants to draw, I think he's actually pretty comfortable here. After all, he was not just leading, he was leading by a pretty hefty margin, too.
And I think that this strategy is really going to even things out at the front of the field, because Luza, I think the biggest winner on pit lane and all of that, was 9th when the caution flag came out. He now moves up to 2nd position. So we look back to that very short opening stint in this race. The 34 and the 1 pulled away from everybody else. They were about a second to the good on 3rd and 4th and so on and so forth on the back. So now you have those drivers reunited on the front row, getting set to come back to a restart. And then the driver who was just that little bit extra off as the lights go on top of the pace car, Zelensky, who wasn't able to keep up with them on even strength earlier, he's got that tire advantage now because he decided to go with 4 tires. So you could see those 3 or 4 guys up front. If you toss Byron Daly into that group, the Amsoil machine started 21st, runs at 4th at the moment. Falla back to where he started, just behind them, will be on the inside of row 3 and 5th. Could be a very good battle up front for the lead off this.
Yeah, keep an eye on that battle for positions 5 and 6 as we come back to green. Ray Alfala and Nick Ottinger, you know those 2 are going to race each other hard, but you mentioned Byron Daly, maybe the wild card in this restart. We'll see what he can do from position number 4. He's had an up and down season so far, Evan, and I know he's looking to turn it around here. We'll see what he can do at Loudon.
A good battle for 2nd off of this will be exactly what Matt Busa wants, as he wants to get out and away from the 1 machine of Luza, faster than him last time they battled for the race lead at the drop of the first green flag. 32 laps complete and another good restart. Busa going to bring us back to green flag conditions. Top 2 going to be single file, though no challenge on Luza. 4 seconds. Zelensky bottom to the top hill slot in front of Byron Daly to take over 3rd. That forces the 06 up. Here comes Alfala as well. 05 out of shape. Nick Ottinger sideways out of the corner. They scatter to get around him.
Huge serpentine down just about top 10 back, and there's actually a bit of a slide from Matt Busa. That opens up everything. Now 3 wide coming off the exit here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Ryan Michaeluza shoves off Ray Alfala. Alfala now going to lose a couple of positions as he then goes 3 wide into corners number 1 and 2. So Bobby Zelensky finds himself now in the lead with Luza on the inside, Matt Busa on the outside, fighting for the 2nd position.
That was contact for the race lead. The 1 got into the 34. That's what sent Busa way off into corner number 3. So I'm curious how polite they'll be as they battle for 2nd. Zelensky, who was 3rd at the time, hopscotched right in front of those 2. He leads this race now as they go side by side for 2nd. Neck and neck that time at the line, advantage barely to Busa. Same thing behind them with Alfala and Mullis going side by side. The advantage in that fight went to the driver on the bottom, the 2, just barely. The longer the 34 and the 1 stay side by side, the further away Bobby Zelensky is going to get. I predicted that the 34 and the Wannabe to be quite on each other off of the restart. The Wannabe did come over the radio to apologize for the contact, but in the end, it hurt both of them.
The intensity that we're seeing with 115 laps to go is like what we're seeing on the last lap. Caution flag will fly, though, and we'll get this field back behind the pace car. But man, oh man, this has been fun to watch the last couple laps.
It means we get another restart. Problems this time for the aid of Adam Gilliland. Contact with the driver who was running in the 13th position. The car got out of shape. Coming out of quarter number 4, you're taking a second look at that incident with a RaceSpotTV replay. Not sure if he made contact with the 15 or if he might have gotten loosened up with the 71 on the left rear quarter panel, or option C, the car just got loose. But there was a wobble off of the quarter, and the 71 just tagged him in the left rear as he was trying to hang on to it, then got him again in the right rear. It sent Gilliland into the inside fence, and that was a pretty good link to the driver's side door of that Chevrolet.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if perhaps there is some front steering damage on that, actually, as it really seemed to quarter panel in there. He was able to spin the car around pretty easily, and he drove away without that much issue, but I'm sure they're going to want the team to get some repairs in on that as he'll get to the back of the line here. Well, they'll have to see now. It's going to be Bobby Zalenski's turn to have a restart here, as we just seem to be very adverse to a green flag run here at New Hampshire, Evan, and that's kind of a bummer. I think that it'd be a really good run if we could get one going.
Yeah, taking a look at the calendar from this point on, the only real short track we have coming up is Dover, but despite the fact that New Hampshire is just a little bit over a mile in length, if you want to get real technical, it's 1.058 miles, which is why tonight's 150-lap event does bring us to 159 miles come the end of the evening. But it very much races like a short track, again, just based on how flat it is. And you are going to see many more cars on top of those who are already showing those signs of cosmetic damage continue to build up as the night goes on. To that point, Tim, that you were just making right before the yellow came out, these guys have really been up on the wheel, and sure, we've seen the top 10 single file out at points, but it's not like they're content to dropping in line and riding. These guys have really been keen to try to start these fights, and a handful of yellows has the pace relatively slow early on, although to be fair, not all that far away from the 1/3 marker in this thing, having worked 38 laps so far to this point, but definitely a lot of on and off up front, which means a lot of restarts, and the 34's had a couple of opportunities up front. Zelensky is going to get his first crack at it.
And with the exception of that last restart, most of the top 10 on the green flag runs have found a place to race. They've got single file, pick off a couple of positions, work your way towards the front of the field. That last restart was like we were racing on lap 145 and not 35. But once again, it shows that these drivers are putting on a show and wanting to get towards the front of the field. The intensity ramping up early here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Zelensky currently leading the thing, and Zelensky has 2 wins. Ray Alfala has 2 wins this season, and Ryan Luza has 2 wins this season. They all run in the top 4, with the exception of Matt Busa. Busa is up there as well, battling it out, and he's looking to try to work his way a little bit closer to the playoff cutoff. He's got a long way to go and a short time to get there. He's got 3 races coming in, and he's got about 60 points to make up. But the best way to do it is to run up front like he is right now. But we'll see if anybody can maybe crack a 3rd win here this evening. And not too far behind, Derek Bordeaux runs in position number 7. You have to look all the way back to the start of the season when Bordeaux won at Daytona. This is almost about as far away as you're going to get from Daytona when it comes to our schedule. And right now, running 7, not doing a bad job. And oh, by the way, he started in 40th position.
He's plus 33 to this point, and he needs solid nights. He may be in a position where he kind of points races, doesn't take that little bit of an extra gamble to go for the win, because again, a win's not going to get you locked in. He does have 3 bonus points though if he's able to keep himself inside of the top 8 once we go to the round of 8 to in the playoff. But into tonight, as we noted, excluding the drop weeks, he is the 8th place driver in the championship, only 5 points at a Christian Challenger for the final transfer position, so he needs to knock off a couple of top 10s, just some safe results, not getting into trouble. If the opening handful of laps, though, of tonight's race are any indication, that might be challenging to come to the end of this one without finding yourself in a couple of peculiar positions. Nonetheless, pace car going to go down this time. 40 laps complete, still 110 to go. Let's see what Bobby Zelensky can do. Putting inside of row number 1. He'll hold them back at a quarter 4. Green flag flies as he gets back underway, and that's good for him.
We've got big trouble, huge junk coming across the start-finish line. They didn't even make the start-finish line, and I already see a couple of engines having detonated, Evan. And I saw the start. This was the first time that somebody had holed up the Mississippis, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, and my goodness, has this scrapped up a lot of good cars.
Yeah, your race leader does not have to go right on the pace car like we had been seeing Matt Busa do. Race leader has from that point in time to the point in which they actually exit the box, and you saw it on the back of your screen just as your leaders were going out of frame that it was a check up at the back, and it all started between the 71 and the 39, and at that point you get a couple of cars around and the people behind have nowhere to go.
And even looking a little closer towards that, they're all checking up, getting ready for the green flag. It brought down maybe a little bit slower than some of those guys had anticipated in the middle of the pack. And the 39, I think, anticipated the field to go. And no, the 71 did not go. And the 71 got a shot in the back from the 39. And as Cam mentioned, it's going to stack up a lot of really good race cars. The 15 of Zach Novak was running within the top 5 earlier this evening. And he's an innocent bystander in this, along with a bunch of others at the back of the field. So they'll come down and get service to their race cars, get a couple of bodies massaged on pit road and back out onto the racetrack. But it's a tough break for a lot of those guys that were trying to anticipate a start.
And you have to wonder just how aware were they if, you know, somebody up front, it was the driver from before. And I'm curious if that's something that the drivers acutely look at, Cam, or if they have the guys on top of the spotter stand or the crew chiefs kind of feed them information as far as who is taking us to the green flag and if they were aware that it was any different. Nonetheless, the idea for the 83 of Zelensky is to mix things up so that when the guys behind you are trying to cheat it, you get off and get going, and that would have been a great restart for him because not only did he get it was an okay jump, it wasn't spectacular, but he was clear of the 34, but most importantly, the 34 was trying to guess. The start checked up right when the 83 started to accelerate. Luza was going to be side by side with him for second to quarter one, and that would have put Zelensky in a great spot to pull away. And so now he's got to kind of go back through the checklist in his mind and decide if he's going to go for the same thing next time around, or if then he'll go right off of the cusp and try to mix things up once again. I just noted, though, right before that restart, that the way things have been so far tonight are indicating that it might be a little bit difficult getting through this one without a couple of bumps and bruises. And well, case proves right there, only about half of the drivers who started inside of the top 10 continued to run inside the top 10.
Yeah, and I have to say we're just past 30 minutes of race time running here, and we're just clipping off lap 43 when we're supposed to be running about 28-second laps. Well, actually more like 29 seconds to be more accurate, I guess I should say. But it's already becoming a long one. It's starting to get into that lull almost, where everyone is just now anticipating there is a caution, which actually seems to always have the habit of making people be more aggressive on the starts to jump up a couple of positions, so when there's the next caution, they can jump up in a couple of positions, and it seems to well, cause that trouble. I think people just need to kind of calm down. We've still got over 100 laps to go here at New Hampshire, and well, this is, as I said, the first time that we've had that stuttered start, that 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. It's a perfectly legitimate thing to do. I mean, we saw it would have paid off handsomely for Bobby Zelensky, especially because all of the restarts previous to that have really gone off almost instantaneously as soon as the pace car had gone off the track. This was the first time that the field got stacked up, and it created that huge junk that we had seen. And really, we were talking about spotters and everything. I don't really think there's any spotter that could have really steered their pilot out of that mess. It seemed to be covering the track from the top of the wall to the bottom of the starter wall.
Yeah, once it happens, if you're able to kind of figure out that checkup is happening, then there's an opportunity that you slow down, but eventually one guy gets the memo to check up, the next guy does. Somebody down the line's not going to get that memo, and once there's contact, there's absolutely nothing that the drivers on the first couple of rows to the back. You even saw in one of the replays, we had drivers getting turned around, and then people were reacting to the accident and got turned around in the same fashion in which the accident got caused with in the first time. So maybe because of that incident, we'll see a little bit more separation on this restart. Maybe drivers will be a little bit more weary. Come to a restart with 5 laps laps until we mark 1/3 distance. Tonight, the opening portion of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Peak Antifreeze and Coolant, the official antifreeze of NASCAR and a proud sponsor of the 2017 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing. So, Zelensky Busso, row 1, Luza Alfala on 2, Mullis Bordeaux, row 3, Ottinger Hurst, row 4, and Daly and Duval on row number 5. 38 drivers total still scored on the lead lap. So, pace car down. This time, what strategy does the 83 go with? And if Matt Bussa is going to be up on his game or not? Rounding through the setup of 3 and 4. Field is all in the hands of the 83 once the pace car ducks down right there. He'll hold them back just a little bit shorter, though, than last time, but he does get off and he goes. Green flag, we go back the other way. Another good jump for him and a fight behind him for second.
Luza going to move to the inside line and look to pick up position number 2. Busa a little bit slower than the leader when he fired on the front straightaway, and it's going to cost him probably position number 2 here as Luza looks to have that advantage as he'll fire down into corner number 3. And look at Jimmy Mullis. Mullis continues to move up through the field. He's battling with Ray Alfala. It gets tight right up in front of him. Busa trying to get the run off corner number 4 to maintain position number 2, and he will do so. Great move by Busa to take that second place spot. And hello, Jimmy Mullis. Mullis to the inside now of Ryan Luza. He saw the opening and he's going to try to muscle his way to position number 3.
The laps earlier in this race, inside was the place to be, but Alfala got passed up by Busa on the restart, and the 40 went to the inside, and it appears to have been the wrong call. The 2 should get him this time, but at turn number 4, he's got the run. He got the 04 lined up to get right in there, and to the point where Mullis might get pinched down on the bottom. Alfala clears him. We'll see if the 40 looks to force his way up in line. He's trying to the back bumper of the 2. A little bit of contact that time. 04 not going to get pushed out of the lane. Real sideways into turn 2 as Bordeaux digs on the outside.
Yeah, and Zelensky has had a good start. Busa, he has also actually have a good start. Now, I'm not necessarily sure if that's because of the fighting behind or if because he's got a good run going on, but Zelensky and Busa seem to be very comfortable here. And Alfala, well, I'm not sure if he's comfortable here because he really hasn't had a space to prove whether or not he can run in the clean air because he has just been running with cars front and back. As I see Derek Bordeaux got a little loose off the exit of 2. He actually pancaked the outside wall and then scraped it again for good measure going into 3 and 4. So we'll see how Bordeaux's car starts going, but Jimmy Mule is pulling to the inside of him. No, he'll think better of it as we're single file pretty much all the way back until about position number 18.
That 04 has been giving it everything he has, and then a little bit extra on the exits of these corners to get the positions, and the 40 is not going to let him get away with it. Back again and challenging for 5th. Mullis looks to the inside. He will tuck back up in line, though, as I head off to corner number 3. So the closest battle to the front of the field is between Lusa and Alfala, not side by side at the moment, about 3/4 of a car length between those two drivers. First side-by-side fight inside of the top 10. It goes without excitement. Corey Vincent was trying to find a way around Byron Daly. Inside wasn't working it. He drops the Herculiner Chevy back in line.
The driver that's on the move since this restart is Michael Conti as he goes off of corner number 2 and nearly loses control of that thing, but he'll pick up the spot on Mullis, and Mullis will now have to deal with Ottinger as Ottinger moves the Ream 05 to the inside, and Ottinger's going to try to take a peek at the number 5 as they come up at a corner number 4. Nothing doing there. He'll still be side by side with Mullis. But the 5 of Michael Conti is on the march. He's moved up a few spots since the restart, and now he chases down Derek Bordeaux in the 04, about a couple of car lengths in between those two. And Conti going to close the gap up off that second corner as they battle for the spot. Behind them, it's still side by side. Mullis trying to hold off Ottinger, and now Taylor Hurst.
And Ottinger, a name who we've been talking about for the better part of the night, started this race in 3rd, dropped back a little bit due to pit strategy, and is now trying to claw his way back up front. The 40 of Mullis is not going to let him get by on the inside of the racetrack, and the 05 will drop back in line. But Conti continues to try to work. Derek Bordeaux is our biggest mover. Caution, though, once again. Problems at lap number 53. Down in 1 and 2. Looks like the 94 of Philip Diaz.
Yeah, and it looks like, again, perhaps a little bit of door banging going on. Again, another call where you really need to look at it 15 different times, 15 different angles before you really want to try to charge, quote, blame. Perhaps Blackford came up a little bit on the entry. Perhaps Diaz was a little comfy on his line. But either way, I will say also Will Cooley ended up going around as well. And this one was actually kind of more of a significant accident. David Rattler had been involved in this one, as well as Nolan Scott having lost his front bumper. So whilst the little tap between the car of Philip Diaz didn't really seem to cause that much damage between either of those two cars, the reactionary accident, that seemed to be the damaging one.
Yeah, the 09, the 25, the 16, just some of those drivers who were no part of the original accident, but ended up arguably getting the worst of it. That a very interesting accident, almost like though those two drivers, Tim, were going for one piece of real estate. The inside was working so good earlier because the driver on the inside could run where everybody wanted to, and that was that third lane, just a step down from the granite surface up at the top of the racetrack, and you would force then that guy outside of you up into the dark stuff, and that's why the inside was good. The 22 went into the corner like the 94 was going to adhere to that and move up the racetrack, and they tried to fit two cars in one lane, and it didn't work out, and unfortunately for the drivers behind, they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it was a lot bigger than just that piece of two-car contact.
We had a bunch of cars down on pit road, and by a bunch, I mean pretty much the whole field of cars coming onto pit road. Mitchell Hunt stays out, Brian Schoenberg, Timmy Hill, Dylan Duvall, and your leader, Bobby Zielinski, tried to fake down onto pit road, came back out the last minute, but a majority of the field came down behind him, so Zielinski will still be scored as your leader. It's going to have four other cars behind him, or at least at this point, you might see one or two of those pop down onto pit road. Looks like Timmy Hill is going to do so, and then just behind them, it looks like Matt Busa may have won the race off pit road.
Well, Zielinski in a situation that we saw early on in this race with Ryan Luza, except it was the opposite. The Wanda machine at the beginning of this race looked like he was going to be bringing drivers down to the pit lane, decided to commit to pit road, and as soon as he crossed that commitment line, second, third, fourth, and fifth from behind, made a sharp right-hand turn back out onto the racetrack and dumped him on the pit lane. So this time, the 83 jumps out of the pit lane at the last second, third, and so on and so forth behind him, decide to stay on the pit lane, and that's the difficulty of being the leader when you have a race like this. Is there's going to be so many different strategies going on, Cam. It's not like a race where we run green all the time and you've got somebody on a short pitch strategy, somebody maybe trying to knock a stop off compared to everybody else. If we have 30, 40 lap runs and get a caution, everybody's going to be pitting. But the problem with races like this is you get 5 laps here, 5 laps there. Well, you don't need fresh tires after 5 laps, but you might want fresh tires after 10 or 15 or 20, and that means you're going to have people pitting at all these different intervals, and it's difficult really to predict what everybody else is going to be doing to kind of form a strategy around that kind of a race.
Well, interesting thing to note here, 27 laps ago, just right then as they crossed the start-finish line, Bobby Zielinski made his last pit stop. Out of the entire field, out of all of these cautions, he has only been down pit lane once during this entire 57-lap run right now. So he's halfway through that run from his last pit stop to now. And yeah, so 27 laps for Bobby Zielinski, 27 laps for Dylan Duvall, and we'll need to see how these guys do. I mean, pretty much everybody behind them are going to be having as many tires as you would want. I think perhaps, yeah, the majority of people seem to have new tires in some way, shape, or another, so going to be interesting to see how they do it.
Thinking that the first driver off of the pit lane with fresh tires, and this one is going to be Matt Busa, who is on the outside of row number 2, restarting in 4th position. Zielinski and Dylan Duvall going to be on the front row for this one. Past 1/3 distance as we look to take on lap number 58. Pace car down and the 83 off and away. Another immediate go for Bobby Zielinski. He's been liking that strategy. Looks like it continues to work as he goes off to quarter 1. He leaves the fight for second behind, and the first driver on 4 fresh ones, the 34, is stuck in all the traffic.
Brian Schoenberg trying to hold on to position number 2 as Duvall will drive off with it. But behind, there's a sense of urgency with those tires. It's Jimmy Mullis on the inside, Busa on the outside, trying to give a little shove to Dylan Duvall. Duvall will take position number 2. And now Busa on the outside, little bobble from the 42 car. Let's that 34 tuck up a little tighter. Is Mullis going to go 3 wide here? We're going to be 3 wide down into corner number 1. Mullis pulls his foot out of it, but we're still 2 wide. This is going to get tight off of corner number 2.
And you just can't get the run off for the corner that low. The 40 thought about it, second guessed himself, and by the time he made the move, it was so late, he had no chance, but hoping to just get out of that without causing a mess. So we get things back down to 2x2 inside of the top 10. Duval under fire by Matt Busa. First driver, fresh tires, can't get him that time. He'll throw it again to the inside at lap number 60 in the side-by-side fight for P2. Behind them at about 6th and 7th, a lot of contact between the 55, the 40, and the 74, a physical one in the top 10.
Yeah, and even then, it's getting to the top 5. It's still pretty physical. Dylan Duval, he's trying to hold on to his positions, but Luza, I think he almost thought about going to the way outside, which would not be advisable, certainly. But once again, it's Ray Alfalla. He is finding himself in the wars, trying to find positions. Bobby Zelensky, he is comfortably out front right now. Busa, though, lots of pressure as Alfalla's. He's dabbling on the inside, fighting a massive steering. Coming out of corner number 3 as he'll continue to hold on to the inside. I think he's going to try to commit to it more here. Yes, he will. So Matt Busa and Ray Alfalla both fighting for position, but Busa, he's only got 2 tires, whereas Ray Alfalla and Michael Luza, they both have 4. So we'll see how that fight goes on as they're going past towards corner number 1.
It is an absolute mess behind them, just inside of the top 10. The 74 Machida Hurst with the body check at a 40 of Mullis last time in turn 3. The 40 went way up 3 wide, but then the 74 got loose on the inside. So he dropped back a couple of positions. They were 4 wide off of the corner. Somehow, those drivers in particular single file things out. The 2x2s just outside the top 10 with Richardson, Vincent, Sturgis, and Davies. So for a moment, the drivers inside of the top 5 at least consider catching their breaths off for the restart as they single file out. But the 5 of Conti continues his valiant charge to the front. Tried for P6 that time, couldn't do it. Bordeaux doing a good job of running a defensive line.
Yeah, get tight down there into corner number 2 for the 04 of Bordeaux and the 5 of Conti just behind them. The double nickel of Schoenberg hanging on. The 05 of Ottinger on the inside. And the 40 of Jimmy Mullis seems to get up to that back bumper. The 55 of Schoenberg and can't seem to do anything with it. Looks like he's going to go to the inside this time as he tries to follow the 05 of Ottinger through. Little bump there in the corner 1 and 2. The 74 of Hurst once again is there. Does he make it 3 wide? He has the run out of corner number 2 and sucks up tight to the back bumper of the 40. As Schoenberg is the loser in this one, he's going to fall 3 positions. Those old tires might be showing their wear a little bit.
This New Hampshire Motor Speedway variable banking, 2 degrees on the bottom, 7 all the way up against the fence. Nobody really wants to be much higher, though, than the middle of the racetrack where they're mostly working when they run single file. But we've seen plenty of fighting off of this restart in particular. And Bobby Zelensky was able to get away in all of that. Your race leader had pulled out to 0.8 of a second out of Matt Busa while he was still fighting for second with Ryan Luza. Now, though, the 34, followed by the 2 Ray Alfalla, have cleared that traffic that was on older tires, and they have brought that gap down inside of 0.3 of a second in what could be a 3-way fight for P1.
Yeah, and it's just been slowly closing in lap after lap after lap, 1/10 at a time. And I have to say, Derek Bordeaux has now gotten past Dylan Duval. Duval, he is on 36 lap old tires, same as your leader. He, though, has not been able to pull the same lap times as Ottinger looks to make a maneuver on Dylan Duval, perhaps going into one at this time by. Meanwhile, though, the lead's still looking like it's getting ever closer. Almost looks like Busa seems to be taking a sharper apex, whereas Zelensky is rolling into the corner, and they've been doing that even with good tires. So good to see different ideas of how to take this New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and both end up being fast.
And you can see at this end of the racetrack, the 34 is running almost a lane down from where that 2 of Alfalla was. So drivers starting to try to spread that line out as the rubber gets put down onto the racetrack, try to make that racing group just a little bit wider. You can see he goes to the inside again. Caution is going to prevent him from challenging for the race lead. Problems, Andrew Fayash and Christian Challoner.
Caution flag flies once again as they recollect themselves down the front straightaway, and tough break for Fayash. It's been an up and down season for him as well, as looks like it's going to turn a little downward here as we get close to that halfway point.
I was just taking an eye on those drivers 2 laps ago, and was going to talk about them until we saw that the battle for the race leader was continuing. But it was a fight for 18th position, Cam, and that's got to be the 3rd identical incident at a quarter number 4, where you just got 2 drivers who just barely made contact coming off of the turn, but the cars just turned around so easily.
Yeah, and it just funnels into that pit wall like you wouldn't believe, as Chris Sherburne found out. He even found the pit wall entry. But either way, though, yep, so those two cars having found themselves into the inside. I have to say, though, I didn't see much damage between them either, which is a good thing. But still, though, some of these cars, I think the majority of them, between all these different cautions and the scraps that we have had, we seem to be finding it, at least past the top 10, pretty difficult to at least find one car that doesn't have some way, shape, or form damage on it.
And another play for pit strategy. So as your race leaders came down this time, Zelensky brought the drivers down, and Busa in second actually agreed with the race leader and came down pit road. Ray Alfala did not. So while drivers are in for service, the 2 machine is going to go from third to the race lead by staying out. Zelensky on pit road. He'll go fuel right side tires only and wins that race off on pit road.
Looks like Busa will come off just behind him. Ryan Luza may have barely edged out Derek Bordeaux, and Michael Conti up there as well, 5th off of the pit road. So Ray Alfala, as you mentioned, takes the lead position. The 4 of Timmy Hill stays out, and the 71 of Mitchell Hunt stays out in position number 3 with a little bit of damage. I suspect that Mitchell Hunt and Timmy Hill will probably be down on pit road, so Ray Alfala may very well be the lone driver out there on older tires, but we didn't go far. We'll see what happens when they do throw the green flag again.
A couple of other drivers stayed out. Timmy Hill did so, but a 4 is going to come down pit road this time. And the other driver that had stayed out is a pretty heavily torn up 71 Chevrolet of Mitchell Hunt. So, as I expected, he's got to bring that machine down and get some service repaired. So unlike in most of these other exchanges where we had at least a small faction of drivers who decided to stay out, there is no sort of buffer for Ray Alfala. Bobby Zelensky in that number 83 machine, going to be right up on him off for the restart. Will restart in second position. Zelensky first driver off for the pit lane with 2 fresh tires. So the 2 has none of that traffic to kind of slow those guys down. So we'll really get a good idea on just how good that 2 is compared to a little bit of help on the right side of the race car with fresh Goodyear Eagles on this, because Alfala will be swarmed by Zelensky, Busa, Luza, who are all but even with him, if not faster than him, considering Alfala was running behind the 83 and the 34 and third at the time. They were pretty close on equal ground. We'll see what happens when there's a little bit of a tire difference.
Yeah, and not only that, it's Ray Alfala, 16 laps, 17 at the line. Literally the entire field is I'm gonna have to come in and at least gotten 2 tires. The first car to take 4 tires, Nick Ottinger and Dylan Duvall. So everybody in your top 9 will have brand new tires on the outside, where everyone seemed to be behind that, tires on the all 4s. So let's see what we can do here, as Ray Alfala will now be able to get the pick off when they get to move.
Restart going to come up with 36 drivers on the lead lap. Going to be 3 laps shy when we do take the green flag of our halfway point. Once drivers sort things out a little bit, we'll take an opportunity to look top to bottom at your iRacing midway race break as we close it on that cross flags point and then begin to count our way down to the end of tonight's New Hampshire 150. So Alfala's first chance tonight to bring us to a green flag. Remember what happened the last time we had a new driver control the restarts? It was a mess back at about row number 7. Let's see how the drivers react to the 2 of Alfala. Pace car, late dive to the pit lane, and he's almost off immediately. Green flag flies as we get back underway. Ray Alfala pulls 2 car lengths.
That was a great start for car number 2 of Alfala. Zelensky going to get a great start as well. Looks like he's going to take second place. You better believe Brian Luza and Matt Busa are going to try to take it away from him, but they'll come off for corner number 2. Your top 2 are single file. Then it's back to position number 3 side by side. And just out of the corner of my eye, I'm seeing the 11 of Davies and the 10 of Corey Vincent going at it. First time we've really said their names all night long in the top 10, and now they're going side by side for a top 10 position. Busa trying to hold on to 3rd, but Luza will get the run off of corner number 4, so move him up a spot. And it looks like Corey Vincent might only be hunting the 04 as well, as he's got Brad Davies still to the outside.
And just in front of them, Michael Conti continues to march forward, still looking for a trip to victory lane in 2017. made a big jump from 24th to about 8th earlier in this race, and ever since then, slowly but surely, a spot here, a spot there. He's looking to get 4th away from Busa. Busa loses the fight with the 1, and the 5 is going to get 1. So move the number 5 of Michael Conti up into the 4th spot. And behind them, just inside of the top 10, a lot going on with a 74 of Taylor Hurst, who has had his hands full for the last couple of restarts. Can't seem to get away from a fight somewhere.
Yeah, speaking of fights, I'm watching Derek Bordeaux and Corey Vincent. Now, Bordeaux seeming to find himself in a fight, in a battle somewhere everywhere. As I'm seeing a car go around, there's Dylan Duval. There's Nick Ottinger, I believe, in the outside wall as well. Caution out. Cars going on both sides of Dylan Duval's car. Somebody's all the way on the inside. That's Chris Sherburne.
And the 42 is kind of in the middle of 2 lanes. As you look at the replay, he was looking to get around the 22 of Blackford in front of him, and he wasn't necessarily lined up with the 22. He was kind of in between lanes, and I don't know if you didn't see the 74 there, or 74 made a late aggressive dive in, but the 42 just kind of got in a tricky spot and got turned sideways. And Nick Ottinger, who's had a spectacular car tonight, was right behind him, got into the back of him pretty good.
Yeah, nowhere to go for Ottinger, and Jimmy Mullis made a nice little avoidance move there to get by. I'm not sure if he got any damage from it whatsoever. I don't think he touched the 42, but if not, it was some close. But tough break for Dylan Duval. Him and Taylor Hurst racing hard for that position. We're just past the halfway point in this thing, so we're going to see a little more of that throughout the evening. But Taylor Hurst, we've seen him mix it up a little bit earlier on this evening as well, Evan. So, you know, he's bound and determined to get to the front of the field, and so is Dylan Duval.
Now that we're past that halfway point, let's take this opportunity to take a look at our iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the leading online racing simulation developed from the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service. iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. And in the fast-paced world of eSports, iRacing is a one-stop shop for online racing with officially sanctioned series by the likes of NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, World of Outlaws, and more. Lap number 77, Ray Alfala is your race leader. Bobby Zelensky, Ryan Lewis, Michael Conti, and Derek Bordeaux inside of the top 5. Corey Vincent rides in 6th. Brad Davies behind in 7th. Brian Blackford 8th. Matt Boost in 9th. And Taylor Hurst in 10th.
Brian Schoenberg, he's in the 11th position. Jimmy Mullis is finding himself in 12th position. Byron Daly in 13th. Casey Tucker in 14th. Marcus Richardson is back in 15th position. Jake Sturgis is in 16th. Nick Ottinger, he's going to have to recover as he's listed in 17th, but I have a feeling after a pit cycle he's going to drop himself way on down, and Kenny Humpy will take his spot. He'll be in 18th. Christian Chalnier in 19th position, and Andrew Fash III rounds out your top 20.
And Matt Busa scored in position number 21 on that last exchange. Chandler Krizik scored in 22nd. David Rattler scored in 23rd. Adam Gilliland is heading up and down night. He's in 24th. Chris Overland involved in an early caution flag, right now sitting in 25th. And on the lead lap, Alex Bergeron in 26th. Ryan Lowe 27th. Timmy Hill in 28th. Jake Nichols in 29th. And Joe Letteriello completes your top 30 in the 33.
Couple of the drivers still on the lead lap. 31st is Trey Edson. He got 32nd. Nolan Scott. 33rd, Tyler Hill. Dylan Duval relegated back to 34th. Coming off for the pit lane from repairs. Nick Ottinger still down there in 35th. And a final driver on the lead lap is P36, Mitchell Hunt. You do have 3-lap down driver Michael J. Johnson. He is 37th position. He's really the last driver, quote-unquote, in this thing. The rest of these drivers are out of this race. 25 laps down. 38th is Will Cooley. Got Logan Clamp at 39th. Zach Novak at 40th, Brandon Schmidt, Chris Shearburn at the very back. So that's a look top to bottom at your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, visit iRacing.com and sign up today. Moving into the next portion of our race, remind you that this part of tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Herculiner Truck Bed Liners, the official bed liner of NASCAR. So not a lot changing, as noted, inside of the top 5 off for the last 3 starts. Fortunate nobody up front wanted to come down to the pit lane. Still the question of what Ray Alfala can do on the older tires and how good of a restart he gets to let the fighting stay behind that number 1 position. Doubled up, getting set to do it again. 79 laps complete from New Hampshire. The 2 holds them back to the last second. Green flag flies. A good call about the 2. He's off.
Yeah, he held them, I have to say it's the longest hold we've seen, but you know what, actually the added advantage of that was almost everybody was on the front stretch by the time he did actually go, so we potentially avoided that accordion effect that we had seen earlier, but Alfala getting the jump. He's got at least a car length and a half over Bobby Zelensky, though Ryan Michaeluza, on the other hand, is completely tucked up in his Ford Fusion behind Zelensky. Zelensky pulls up through 3 and 4, and we finish out lap number 80.
3 wide down the front straightaway, a lot going on just outside of the top 10. Somebody got hit off at the corner. I think it might have been the 01 machine, and in the middle of a melee was Marcus Richardson, who is in crazy. You got the 55 of Schoenberg in there, the 94. Going to cross him up as Philip Diaz tries to work his way to the front. That was definitely a big incident that was avoided by those drivers back there. Contact with the 40, spinning out of the corner is Jimmy Mullis.
And that will bring out the caution flag about a lap after everything happened coming out of corner number 4. Tough break for Mullis. He's been running so strong here this afternoon, and he's going to have to work his way back up towards the front of the field. But man, oh man, the 55 and the 40 had their incident about a lap before that. And then Jimmy Mullis racing side by side with Jake Sturgis. They make a little bit of contact. It sends the 40 car around, and everybody has to check up behind. Phil Diaz, one of those drivers that got collected in that one, and he's going to hit the wall, and a couple of others collect them too there.
And that one basically just a racing deal. Again, it was a lot bigger than how it started, just by drivers getting collected in it post-mortem. But we've had now 3 incidents tonight where contact off of the corner has gotten somebody turned around, and this is the second time tonight where we saw the yellow just 2 yellows ago, almost identical to this one. You've got 2 drivers going into the corner side by side. It's not hard contact. It's not like the 41 blew the entry to the corner. They just get up on each other, but it upsets the back end of that car. And again, there's no banking for the race car to hold on to, so the back end just slides and slides and slides. And Mullis did a good job of spinning that car out to the inside and not coming back up the hill. Caution would have come out anyways for him, but again, the big accident was the drivers behind who got caught with a bunch of smoke in front of them, had nowhere to go, and then they also got tangled up. So that brings the number of cars that involved from 2 to about 5 or 6.
Yeah, I mean, we got to remember these guys are approaching the corners at about 130, and they're carrying the mid speed about, I'd probably say 105. And so when you start having these accidents, they develop super quick right in front of you. And if you start touching your brakes, the car behind you is going to hit you. If you move the steering wheel a little too much, you're going to lose the front end or the rear ends. And it just ends up creating a fairly sizable pileup. And then you've got a lot of cars with not a lot of space to go. But this is the second time that we've had a fairly large junk, I'd have to say, but you know what, this one though, it didn't seem like there was too much damage. I saw 6 cars that had actually made contact with one another. I don't think any of them are going to be retiring, but either way, for Ray Alfala, this means, well, he gets another opportunity to lead the field to green.
Did get an opportunity to note it on that last caution because we were coming to the green flag, but do want to remind you that if you are looking to sign up for a first-time iRacing subscription, now is the time to do it. If you go to iRacing.com/World of Outlaws, you can take advantage of some exclusive promo codes. You can get yourself on an iRacing membership. If you want to just try things out, you can get a 3-month subscription for less than $5. Or if you're ready to start your iRacing career, you can go with a 1-year iRacing subscription for over 50% off the sticker price. Again, those are limited time options that are available through the rest of 2017. For more information on how to make that happen, go to iRacing.com/World of Outlaws. Lights out on top of the pace car, and going to be 85 laps complete when we come back to green. Tim, really haven't seen this race broke out into an elongated green flag period, which means the pit strategy is still kind of up in the air, but we are going to start to run out of time in this thing. Close it in on lap number 100.
Yeah, we're getting close on laps as the pace car will leave the racetrack this time. Alfala continuing to lead this thing. We'll see what kind of restart he can get here. He's been lights out on the last couple of restarts and has left everybody fighting for position number 2. And if he can do that, watch that 1 car on the inside of row number 2 of Ryan Luza. He should be able to get up there and battle with Bobby Zelensky. And oh, by the way, Michael Conti is now firmly up in the top 5, sitting in position number 4. I don't think the number 5 has shown us everything that he has inside that race car tonight.
But we'll see how the tires are doing on Alfala's machine. He's been enjoying all these restarts because it slowly negates the disadvantage he has on tires by staying out from when everybody else around him pitted a couple of laps ago. Green flag flies as we get back at it, and another beautifully executed start by the 2. Challenge is going to come for second. Luzo way down to the inside. He'll slide up to the door of the 83, right and alongside each other in the battle for second. Zelensky will have the advantage off of the corner, but that one holding him true.
Yeah, real fella, he's made his clean getaway, so looking just further back and back and back. It's 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 as far as the eye can see, which will hopefully see these guys start slipping and sliding themselves into single file. Pretty much everybody's starting on laps that tires that are over 15 laps old, so this is definitely going to be a second heat cycle on these Goodyear Eagles as Michael Conti looks to the inside of Ryan Michael Luza. They're all sliding around, but you know what? Michael Conti holds on. Derek Bordeaux going for a ride down the backstretch. He wrangles his Ford Fusion back together as he leans to the inside of one and into corner number 3, and he's still on the attack of Corey Vincent.
Vincent, somebody else who we've been talking about a good bit tonight, started 11th, and he slowly started to make his way up that extra 1 or 2 spots, very similar to Michael Conti, who continues to ride in his race-high P4 running position. The 74 of Taylor Hurst, every time we talk about him, he's in a side-by-side fight around 10th, but in front of him a big bobble. The 04 of Derek Bordeaux, sideways at a turn 2, thought maybe that 11 of Davies was going to be able to take advantage of it. Wasn't close enough, and Bordeaux gets away with one there as he's able to recover and stay in front of that side-by-side fight.
Yeah, that could have been massive for that 04 of Derek Bordeaux, but now he regains his composure and now in front of Davies as he has Hurst to the inside. Just behind them, Byron Daly battling alongside Jake Sturgis. I see David Rattler back there battling with Kenny Humpy. There's a few side-by-side battles as these guys try to figure this thing out. Daly gives a little shot to Brian Blackford down into corner number 3 as they're all going at it right now, closing in on that 50 to go mark as we come up at a corner number 4 this time. Hurst continues to be underneath the 11 of Brad Davies.
And I want to talk about some of the guys a little bit further back, but again, because of the restarts, we see so many fights going on inside of the top 5 that you have to keep an eye on. But just to give a call to some guys like the 47, but there's problems in front, and it is with Davies. Davies, he'll clip the 09, so also involved in that one, it's going to be David Rattler, but big issues with that 11 from inside of the top 10 as he had some assistance.
Yeah, I see also David Rattler was stopped, but this happened maybe 15 cars up ahead. Yeah, Brad Davies getting some help from Taylor Hurst, not just once, but twice. Getting 2 taps on that number 11, sending him around, and that right there started PJ Sturgis spinning Kenny Humpy. He had a brush with the wall, but mostly the big loser for this one, I'd have to say, is David Rattler, as Rattler got jackknifed into the outside wall, and Andrew Fash managed to lose his front bumper. So, yeah, that's definitely not a great one. They were fighting for 20th position-ish, maybe 15th between the 20th positions, but yeah, this is... it's getting to the point now where you'd almost wish that these guys would think that perhaps, you know, let's get at least a 5-lap, you know, run going or a 10-lap run going. Let's start getting a little comfortable here. But, and this is a big change here, pretty much everybody's coming down pit lane except for somebody who stayed out. That's Brian Blackford.
Blackford going to stay out to put him to the race lead, but Alfala is down pit road, so his previous strategy to stay out works because he stayed out when Zelensky pitted. Zelensky's been behind him the whole time. Now they pit together, so a good call for the 2. He just needs to execute on the pit lane. Deep into the box, but not too far, as Ray Alfala looks for fuel and right side tires. He'll go with, looks like he's going to stay in the box. He will go with 4 tires, so maybe planning on making this his last stop on the evening. Only the 3rd time he's been down pit road tonight. He will just beat the 83 off of pit road, but he was not the first driver out.
And that'll go to Corey Vincent in car number 10. He'll win that race off pit road, and PJ Sturgis not too far behind him. And then Ray Alfala and the rest of the field. We had about a dozen or so cars that stayed out on the racetrack, and I believe it's led by Brian Blackford in car number 22. He stays out on the racetrack. Chris Overland, who Cam mentioned was involved in that recent caution flag with David Rattler, is going to stay out in 2nd. Dylan Duval, who was involved in a caution a little bit earlier, lines up in 3rd. Busa 4th. Bergeron in 5th. Chalner in position number 6. And Evan, there's a name that's just outside of the top 8 prior to that one drop race, heading in it to the playoffs. You've got Derek Bordeaux, who's running up front a little bit earlier. Marcus Richardson has had an up-and-down race. Ryan Luza has been up front. We haven't spoken a whole lot about Chalner here this evening. If he wants to have a good run here and start to build a little bit of momentum, this might be the call to stay out, maybe get a couple of quick cautions and put yourself in a little bit of track position.
He was 5 points below Derek Bordeaux between 8th and 9th in the championship into tonight. As they run on the racetrack right now, Challenger is in 6th. Bordeaux is in 14th position. That about gives him a 3-point advantage in the live championship standings for that final transfer position. But a lot of drivers staying out this time, and it's really going to shuffle up the running order. You've got Vincent, first driver off for the pit lane, as Tim noted, Cam in 7th, and then Sturgis is 8th position. Those drivers went with 2 tires, and I'm sure there's other drivers from deeper in the pack who went with 2 that just weren't able to beat Ray Afala off for the pit lane. But Afala, first driver off with 4 tires. Zelensky, Luza, they all went with the same call on 4 fresh rubber. So you've got the top 6 staying out. You've got 7 and 8 on the racetrack on 2, 9, 10, and for most part on back on 4 tires. And closed it in on to the end of this race. Some of the drivers may have made their final stop.
Yeah, and just to show the actual stints, it's Brian Blackford with 24 laps, Chris Overland with 17, Dylan Duvall with 16, Busa with 13, Bergeron with 10, and Christian Challier with 10. So even the guys that had stayed out, their tire stint lengths are actually all over the place too.
And you've seen some drivers come down pit road as little as 3 times, and some drivers have been down pit lane almost double-digit amount of times. So that's really just how much that these caution flags have changed up the complexion of the strategy game in this race. We'll complete lap number 94. We will take 56 laps to go from Loudon, New Hampshire. Brian Blackford is your race leader. Green flag flies. The 47 of Overland right on him.
Yeah, the top 2 timed that pretty good as they'll run it down into corner number 1, and they'll get single file between those top 2. And there's Duvall poking the nose underneath the number 47 car as they work off of corner number 2. Busa had a great jump to that one as well, behind Bordeaux in the fence, and they all scatter behind about the top 12.
And let's not forget about that 34 of Matt Busa. Started this race in 2nd, has been a part of battles for the race lead for the better part of the night, but it took staying out, a little bit of strategy later in the going here to get himself back up into that position. He gets in front of the 42 Duvall, that'll give him 3rd, and he goes to challenge on the 47 of Overland, maybe to be able to get 2nd. Keep an eye on that 10 though of Vincent. The 10 on 2 tires. Right behind him, the 2 of Ray Alfala on 4 tires. Quickly working through traffic.
Yeah, and looks like and as soon as I start talking, we get another call in a car in the wall. Perhaps that's a sign of things, and unfortunately, it is Derek Bordeaux. I have a feeling perhaps he had just taken enough one too many risks this time, but because it looks like he's jumped into corner number 3 and collected Marcus Richardson.
And I think bad news outside of the accident, though, as we take a second look for that one, is I was about to say Logan Clampett was involved because I saw him very slow on the inside with no front end. That car was like that the entire time. So that goes to tell you just how rough of a night he's been having. But yeah, the 04 made an aggressive move from the top side to the bottom. I think he just overdrove the entry, tagged the 01 machine. And the problem was the 58 was there, hooks him back up the hill, and instead of lazily spinning to the inside, he gets a big hit from the 33.
Yeah, a lot of guys getting collected up in that one, but the good thing up in front, you have the 22 of Brian Blackford, who stayed out on the racetrack's going to maintain the lead position, and then just behind you've got Chris Overland and Dylan Duvall, who also stayed out, and it looks like they're going to maintain some of that position at least for the next restart. It doesn't look like they're coming down pit road on this exchange, but we'll see what transpires here. As I think Cam mentioned it, every time he keys up, a caution flag comes out. We're going to probably might have to bench him here for a couple of these caution flags.
Just thinking as to take it out on the pit lane, obviously nobody from up front pitting. We got most of that out of the way under the last one, but a lot of drivers coming down pit lane to get serviced. There's about 6 drivers stuck one lap down with damage that are trying to run the balance of coming down pit lane under each caution to get repairs while also staying out and hoping to be in that lucky dog position to get back to the front of the field. But I know New Hampshire's known for a lot of short track racing, and I thought I saw a couple of modifieds. It's just a group of drivers that don't have the front ends. Mitchell Hunt has had a rough go at it. The the likes of Andrew Fayash. And Fayash was way behind where that contact started on that most recent accident and just got squeezed up into the fence, unable to get around it. So for all of the drivers who have found themselves in tricky positions, and the wrecks tonight, Cam, have been very indiscriminatory. They've happened up front, they've happened at the back, and they've happened everywhere in between. To be fair, kudos to the guys up front, looking like they got pretty clean race cars, which may be why that they find themselves at a great spot here, close it in on the final third of this race.
Yeah, we've been pretty fortunate. I think end up the first maybe 7 or 8 cars always seem to have a very clean getaway on the restart, because there always seem to be whereabouts the leader is. They actually have visual range with that leader. Obviously, everyone can see the leader out of their front windshield, but they're more focused on the cars in front and behind as they're starting to work through the gears and under acceleration. But what ends up happening, I think, is they are perhaps getting a little more accordioned than perhaps the other front runners. So that always ends up happening. These guys are very bunched together. Now, I will say though, we're starting to lose cars. I have to say, they're picking up just a little bit too much damage. Lodorello, he ended up blowing an engine. Hurst, I feel, is his day is done. Bordeaux's day was done as well. It brings us to just 29 cars on the lead lap, and I wouldn't be too surprised if that doesn't come down a little bit further, because I see Casey Tucker's car very damaged, as well as a couple of others. But yeah, for the most part though, we're going to see here if we can continue to get through this campaign. We're going to try as we just reach 100 laps here at New Hampshire.
It'll make the math really easy for us. 100 laps down, 50 laps to go. So to the point at which we were discussing at the caution flag, right when it came out, trying to see if these guys would kind of give each other a little bit more space off for the restarts, it becomes increasingly more difficult with each passing lap to convince yourself and the guys around you to take it easy on each other off for the restart, when every single time you have a restart, there's less and less laps to go. And I think at this point, 2/3 of the way into this thing, you have to call this the home stretch. Close it in on the run to the end of this thing. Don't expect these guys to be taking it any easier on each other. Last restart, the 22 of Blackford got a good one. Overland was right alongside him. What can Matt Busa do this time from second? No. Great coordination by the 22 to 47. They'll rock it to P1 and 2.
And look at the move Alfala made. He had the inside line when those two got out, and he moves to the inside of Duval. Busa quickly to the inside line, though, as he'll battle with Overland for position number 2. I think Busa got the best jump of those drivers that came down pit road a little bit earlier, but Busa trying to stave off the rest of the field, too. Look at that 2 of Ray Alfala back there as we got Bergeron way up on the outside line, I believe that is, and they somehow saved it. We stay green down the front straightaway, and Blackford got about a lead of about 4 lengths.
The longer they stay side by side for second, the better off the 22 is going to be, but I just don't think that the 22 to 47 and the likes of those drivers just have what it takes to go up against Alfala. The big thing off of that restart is the 2 was able to get in front of the 10. Again, Vincent beat the 2 off of pit road last time they were down because he decided to go with 2 tires. But off of this restart, Alfala was able to get in front of Vincent, so now he leads the charge on fresh rubber, trying to find himself in third. The 47 stubborn on the outside, not going to give it up as Busa finally completes the pass on Overland, so we get a good square side-by-side fight for third. Don't count out the 10. You got the 5, the 42 Duval, but Alfala making headway sooner than anybody else. Top 3 now.
Yeah, that last corner, Busa was able to close up like it was nobody's business. I believe Blackford, his tires might just be getting to that limit. 33 laps now, and quite a few of them have been under caution, to be fair. But 10 laps younger tires on Matt Busa. He's able to really pull along the last 3 laps. Now he's looking to the inside. Ray Alfala, however, on his 4 tires that are only 12 laps old now, he is really cruising in on this. I wouldn't be too surprised if he starts taking the fight to Matt Busa on the outside this time, perhaps to Brian Blackford next time by.
Yeah, made the pass for third on the inside, but that time the defensive line was taken up by the 34, so the 2 said, all right, I'll go topside. And with that, Ray Alfala 1 spot away from the top. Can Brian Blackford hold him off? Looking to the inside. Big run off of the center of the corner, right on the left rear quarter panel, sideways at a turn 2. The 22 won't give it up, and Alfala gets tagged. Alfala spun at a corner number 2 after contact with Matt Busa.
And those guys were racing hard for the spot. You saw the 2 of Ray Alfala racing with his teammate, the 22 of Brian Blackford, and the 34 goes to the inside thinking that he can make the move and be able to clear him. And man, oh man, that tough break for those two there, and even a tougher break for Ray Alfala. But on the other side of it too, Evan, we've seen numerous occasions this season, even the 2-car coming from the rear of the field all the way back up to the front of the field. Time might not be working on his side, but we've seen it happen before.
Absolutely, and not to discredit some of the other accidents that we've seen tonight, but that's really the first one we've seen when you got not guys, jammed in 2x2x2, and the 2 is trying to get up the inside, just couldn't hold it there, checked it up, and Busa tried to take advantage of that, swipe from the inside to the outside, and caught him on the back end. And now Alfala did a good job of keeping that car out of the outside fence. I think he might have got it with the right rear, but instead of nosing it nose first into it, he just kind of lazily spun out to the inside. So Ray Alfala is still going to have a car to race with and to be competitive. Biggest challenge for him is going to be getting through traffic as the top 10 or so drivers stay out, but mostly 11th on back decide to pit at lap 107.
Yeah, Ray Alfala deciding, well, if I'm going to be losing positions, I might as well lose these positions getting tires. And so he'll get himself some tires, probably 4. I would imagine they've got the jacks up on the right side. Will they get them up on the left side? Yes, they will. So for Ray Alfala, he'll be taking 4 tires as well as quite a couple of other cars. But yeah, I got to actually tip my hat to that number 2 driver of Ray Alfala, because the wheeling that he did to correct the steering into the outside wall, just as you were saying, Evan, really kept him from crashing into that outside wall. And I feel if he crashed into that outside wall, there was literally an entire field of racing cars approaching at about 130 mile an hour that probably would not have ended well. So bravo there. But yeah, they're going to re-rack him, restack him. Ray Alfala, well, right now it looks like he's coming out just ahead of Adam Gilliland. Should be somewhere in the ballpark of P20-ish.
The problems for your race leader, Brian Blackford, who was leading this race, had some issues keeping up speed under the caution, had dropped to 4th and then drove that car back up to the race lead where he was, and then had some sort of an issue on his end of the sim where he's no longer in this race. So he's going to try to get himself back on the racetrack, but some sort of issue on his sim, and he is not in the race lead anymore. And I believe, as it looks like that he's going to get that car back to the pit lane and try to get back out on track, that'll then give the race lead to Matt Busa. So quite the change of events in all of that. Really changes how the front looks. You got the race leader gone, the guy that was fighting for the race lead gone. Busa, who was 3rd, is going to bring us back to the green flag the next time.
But you still have a couple of wild cards mixed up in here in the final 40 laps or so of this one. And you look to the outside of row number 1, you're going to see Chris Overland in the 47 car. Yes, we've seen Matt Busa run up front so far this evening. Conti, Zielinski, PJ Sturgis, Christian Chalner, a couple of names that we really haven't seen all night long. Nolan Scott in the top 10 as well. Marcus Richardson's been hanging out around the top 20. He's now in the top 10. Then you got Ryan Luza rounding out that top 10. Corey Vincent is back there as well. Byron Daly used some pit strategy earlier to get himself into the top 5. He's now running in position number 7. This race has been nothing short of unpredictable so far this evening, Evan, and I think we're going to see that rear its head again over the next 40 laps of this race. But Matt Busa, he's run up front early. He's now up front. And Michael Conti, Bobby Zielinski, I think the 2 of the strongest players in this race line up in row number 2 right now. But they do have to get by Matt Busa and Chris Overland.
With drivers having pitted under the caution flag, Ray Alfala finds himself in an 18th position after that accident. It's Busa, Overland, Conti, Zielinski, and Sturgis. Inside of the top 5 of those, PJ Sturgis, the biggest mover, started in 39th position. He's inside of row number 3. Another good jump by Matt Busa, as he has all night long, went right away. But here comes a challenge all the way from 3rd. Conti just traced that back bumper all the way to quarter 1. That should get him 2nd in the Peak Ford.
Yeah, and here comes Bobby Zielinski on the inside of Chris Overland as well. It was a clean start so far as they're heading into corner number 3 for the first time. Lap 110 here. Matt Busa, though, he's led a couple of these starts. He went immediately. I feel like that was probably the safest thing to do. As Conti now, I think he's been waiting for this for some time. He started in 24th, Evan, and now he's got just one more position to go before he leads here in New Hampshire.
and he can't get to that side-by-side. He's just on the doorstep. He's been working ever so consistently tonight to pick up spot after spot, and he's right there. Wants to get it, I assume, before Zelensky tries to interfere with that. Big battle going on for third. The 83 on the inside forces Overland up, and they will go door-to-door at a battle for that number 3 spot. If the 83 can get by, then that really puts a lot of pressure on Conti to get the job done sooner than later. But the top 5 in a position now where all of them have a good opportunity, depending on how this shakes out, to battle for the race lead as they fight for third. The top 2 get away in just a little bit. Conti tried again in 2, still not brewing.
Conti was able to get that thing to turn on the extreme inside line at a corner number 2, but if you get it to turn so far down there, you can't get the run off the corner, and that's what Conti suffered from that last lap by. Zelensky got the run at a corner number 4 on the inside. He'll take position number 3. Sturgis will battle on the inside, and once again, here comes that battle for the lead, but off a corner number 2 on that inside line. Conti got a better run that time as the 47 behind them is in the fence. Overland going to lose a couple of spots, but he can get that car to turn on the inside line, Evan, but he just can't get that run off because he's so far down on the inside line.
Overland, as you noted, who got into shape, got passed up by PJ Sturgis. So Sturgis going to go up to 4th. Ryan Luza went way to the inside to get around him. He goes up to 5th. Side by side again for the lead. The 34 went a little bit high that time in 2, and that may have been the opening that Michael Conti needed. Real tight that time off of the corner, down the back straightaway. Top side, better run. Half a car length advantage for Matt Busa, down to quarters 3 and 4. Lap number 114. Can Michael Conti finally find that little bit extra? Can't do it that time.
No, the Toyota Camry pulling him down the front stretch going into 1. And Matt Busa now, I think he's taking a little bit of a lower line. He hasn't been able to clear Michael Conti, and I don't think he really wants to drive that far down there. I think he's pretty happy on the outside, though I will say he has rubbed the outside wall on the exit of corner number 2 for 2 laps in a row now. So we'll see here. I have to say, though, these guys are probably starting to slow each other down, and for Bobby Zelensky and Ryan Michaeluza, that's exactly what they want to see. I also see a specifically painted black number 57 at PJ Sturgios in the back there. He started 39th position, and he has now worked himself up into 5th position. Could he play spoiler?
The other big thing in that is, as noted, Zelensky's up to 3rd. Luza now continues to march forward, and again, all that courtesy of the 47 dropping back, not to take our attention away from the race lead, but there's still great fighting towards the outside of the top 10. Duval, Daly, Alfala, Ottinger, Davies, Vincent, 2x2x2, almost 4 rows deep of side-by-side action as the 2 of Ray Alfala is halfway back to the front. In fact, now passing 2 more cars, he's back up to 8th as we watch the fight for the race lead again. Conti is so good on the inside center off, but it's down the straights where the 34 is able to pull back up to him. Half a car length for the peak on the inside. But the 34, watch him off of the corner. This is where Busa has been so resilient, just does not let that 5 get clear of him.
The last time down here into corner number 1 and 2, Conti got the run on the inside, was able to inch ahead in the middle of the corner, but Busa gets that run off as they'll come up on Mitchell Hunt this time to put him behind them. The 1 in the 83, it's Bobby Zelensky going for a ride, and man, oh man, I don't know how that wasn't a caution.
No caution, they stay green, but it was contact between Bobby Zelensky and the one of Luza. Luza not happy over the radio about that one. Both drivers lost a lot of time. Zelensky loses the most. That almost takes both of them out of the battle for the race lead entirely, but neither of them spun, so we stay green. Next thing you know, PJ Sturgis is now 3rd, Luza is 4th, and Ray Alfala up 13 off of the restart is 5th.
And for Conti there, it is now just a duel between himself and Matt Busa. He doesn't have to look in his mirror at all. And, well, PJ Sturgis, mark him up to 3rd now as they're rolling through here. Lap 120 now here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway is now we're starting to get into it here. It's putting on a good show now. Ryan Michaeluza, I have to say, he is now on the defensive from Ray Alfala. Alfala possibly looking to the inside, maybe next time by. Dylan Duval, though, he has had quite the troubled race. Started 18th. I think he's been involved in a couple of these accidents. He's worked his way up to 6th.
Tale of many different tapes for those drivers that are running up front. For Luza and Alfala, they started inside of the top 5 where they run right now. They've been contenders all night. For likes of Conti in 2nd, he started 24th. PJ Sturgis in 3rd, started in 39th position. Doesn't matter where you started, though. All that matters is what result comes at the end. About the 5th time, Michael Conti is going to try for the race lead. On the bottom of the racetrack, he'll try to pinch that 34 up and above that preferred groove. Contact that time in 4. The 34 not going to get bullied out of the lane, and Busso once again holds strong.
That might be what Conti has to do, though. He might have to run that 34 Abusa up to the 3rd or 4th groove and try to take that run away off the corner. Conti has been so strong in the entry of the corner, but just can't get the run off of 2 and off of 4 to run down the straightaway. You might have to dirty him just a little bit, get him up off the groove, and try to win the race that way. It is, you mentioned earlier, short track racing. After all, Sturgis in 3rd, and I think the wild card in this might very well be car number 2 of Ray Alfala. He continues to make up spots, but he's been using up those tires. We'll see how much he uses up as he gets a little closer towards the front of the field. But Michael Conti once again on the hunt, but maybe he's laying back a little bit, maybe trying to save a little bit in that race car. We're starting to get that green flag feel to this as we work lap 123.
Yeah, it may come to the very ends of this race, and the key thing, as you said, for Alfala is he's still faster than the drivers up front by 1 to 2/10 of a second per lap. Now, going to slow down a little bit, obviously, as he tries to find a way around Lusa. So the biggest thing for the 34 and the 5 as Conti goes, and he finally got it. A slide job at a turn number 2. Busa slides up to the outside, and he could not get back to the top of Michael Conti and the 5 car. First time tonight at 26 laps to go. It's going to finally go to the race lead.
Yeah, and I was wondering just how these cars are starting to get to the point where they're sliding around like this. I mean, both of these drivers there are slowing way down, well below 100 miles an hour to get these things steered into the corners. Michael Conti, 33 laps. Matt Busa, 44 laps. PJ Sturgis, 33 laps. So these 3 front runners are running tires that are really starting to get worn, whereas the rest of the field, they've got maybe half of that. Ryan Michaeluza, Ray Alfala, Dalen Duval, etc., etc. So these guys, they're doing some great racing and is putting on a good show here towards the end of this race, but I gotta say, they keep fighting like this. It's just gonna allow all those other cars with all those tires to really catch up and start making the moves, and there goes Ryan Michaeluza around PJ Sturgis just like that.
And the key is the 1 and the 2 need to get by the 57, because as Ray Alfala has been fighting with that number 1 Alusa to try to get by him, while he hasn't been able to pass him, they've been making up time on the race leaders. They were 2.4 seconds back, now they're only a second off. Sturgis has not been gaining time on the guys up front, but he hadn't been losing time. That was a consistent 0.8 of a second difference. So the 1 and the 2 cannot afford to get stuck behind him. Now, the difference per lap is only about half a tenth, so it's not going to be easy to get by as shown as Lusa goes on to his 3rd lap side by side for that 3rd position. The longer this goes on, the better the 5 and the 34 are. Lusa clear. He gets the number 3 position. Now Alfala going to try to go for 4th. If those drivers can clear the 57, they are quicker than the drivers who run 1-2.
And then the next question comes up, because you're going to have to get up to the 34 of Matt Busa. The 2 trying to clear the 57 down the back straightaway. They'll get up on the 39 of Michael Johnson. They'll put a lap on him, and the 2 car will clear the 57 down into the 3rd corner. Now, can the 1 car and the 2 car get up to the 34? Because Busa, the last couple of laps, has lost ground on the 5 of Michael Conti. Conti is out by about 8 car lengths now, and now Ryan Lusa and Ray Alfala have to track down the 34 car for position number 2. So this one is about to get wild. If it stays green, we're bound to see one heck of a finish here.
And the big thing was right after Conti made that pass for the race lead, Busa was able to stay with him. Got about 2-3 laps, actually got to his inside at one point, but it's showing that number 5 may be just a little bit too quick to catch, although a couple of slow laps from Conti, what was almost a 0.6 of a second advantage is now back down to 3, so the 34 begins to close the gap once more. The problem is these guys up front have been running 29.6s and 29.7s for the better part of this run. Alfala and Lusa, though, were down in the 29.5s and even the 29.4s. They're no longer hitting those laps, lap in and lap out, so you have to wonder if they just stepped over that threshold or they lost the bite on those tires.
Yeah, and perhaps that's why we were so surprised when they came in the first caution 10 laps in. Like, almost everybody came in and got tires, and we were starting to get a little worried that perhaps the tires would fall off that much, but we're still seeing, we're seeing that Matt Busa, who is on 50-lap-old tires, runs a 29.6, whereas Ryan Michael Luza, who is on 24-lap-old tires, running a 29.5.
You go inside of 20 laps to go. The race to the checkered flag is brought to you by Blue Def, the official diesel exhaust fluid and DEF equipment of NASCAR. Can it be the peak Ford Fusion of Michael Conti in search of a first win in 2017? Same applies to the 34 of Busa, who rides behind him right now in the number 2 position. If they start to fight, Luza and Alfala, 3rd and 4th, are still slowly closing. Side by side for the race lead would really get them involved.
Here's the other thing I'm sure they're not thinking about right now. When they're trying to get into the top 8 in the playoff cutoff, Matt Busa, Michael Conti, 16th and 17th in the point standings. If they have any shot at getting into the playoffs, the inaugural NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing playoffs in 3 weeks' time, they're going to have to really make sure that they get a good finish here this evening. You mentioned if they battle for that spot and maybe one of them makes contact and they slide around, the 1 and the 2 get by, it might end their playoff hopes right here at Loudon. But the 1 car of Ryan Luza, I'm sure he's thinking the same thing as well. He's not too far off that cutoff when it comes to making that drop race. So Ryan Luza, same boat, needs to get up here and try to solidify himself in championship contention. Ray Alfala looking for that 3rd win of the season. It's pretty comfortable right now when it comes to that playoff picture, but they'll come up at a corner number 4 and see 16 laps to go. Conti has 2 lengths on Busa.
Just a little bit shy of a 1/10 of a second faster last lap Luza compared to Conti and Busa, so that would tell you he's going to get there right at about 3 laps to go. Interesting how the strategy and the flow of this race have played out, but as Michael Conti, still leading this race, goes back off to quarters 3 to 4, now the longest green flag stretch on the night will bring us to 15 laps to go.
Yeah, and as we're entering that stretch, we're starting to see these lap times really not stretch out at all. In fact, quite the opposite. We're seeing all of the lap times normalize as PJ Sturgis and Corey Vincent are fighting for position number 5. PJ Sturgis, who is having a very good race, and he's been dodging wrecks left and right, it seems, all day long, and now it's starting to finally pay off. All that wreck avoidance started 39th, he's up to 5th. It's about to drop back down to 6th. Corey Vincent doesn't have anything to say about it. However, though, it's chasing down 1, 2, 3, 4 down almost the entirety of the front stretch here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. It was a 29.8 for Conti, 29.8, 29.8, 29.6, then 29.7. Your top 4.
If you're that 34 of Matt Busa and you want an opportunity to battle for the race win in this, the 57 of PJ Sturgis got all kinds of out of shape at a corner 2. He got tagged not once but twice, and that really killed the battle for 5th with a 42 Bashida Dylan Duval, who also got damage in that exchange. But if you're Matt Busa and you want to get to the race lead, you got to do it now, because the gap between you and the car in front of you is starting to get bigger than the gap between you and the car behind you. Ryan Luza cannot waste any time to be pretty about what kind of pass he puts for P2. 12 laps to go next time by. He's going to have to do it quickly.
You know Matt Busa is going to put up a fight with the 1 of Ryan Luza, and if he does that, it's going to be the greatest advantage for Michael Conti. Conti's going to be able to extend his lead a little bit and try to run away from Ryan Luza. Luza, one of the fastest drivers on the racetrack right now, but if he wants the win here at Loudon, he has to get by the 34. He sucks up tight, little bump there through 1 and 2. Looks to the inside, and Ryan Luza trying to position himself to position number 2. 34 Abusa on the outside. They'll dive it down into corner number 3, and the 34 Abusa giving him a little bit of room on the inside to operate. The 1 of Ryan Luza, though, will move to position number 2, and pretty quickly, mind you. He's got 11 laps to get up to Michael Conti.
11 laps, he's got to make up a 6/10 of a second gap. Look at Ray Alfala in the 2. Also making a quick move to go up to the number 3 position, but I think based on how fast these cars have been for the last laps, I think the 1 has a little bit more speed than the 2, unless Alfala's been sitting back, but with 10 laps to go this time, there is no more time to reserve anything. Can Conti hang on, or Ryan Luza come up to the field, get win number 3 on the season. Do we see Ray Alfalla come up, get win number 3 on the season? Or does Conti get number 1? He lost to 10th the last lap with 9 laps to go.
Yeah, not much time now left in the game after an hour and 35 minutes of running here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. They call it the Magic Mile. It has certainly been something, that's for sure, as now we're starting to see here in the very closing stages. The cars are starting to close up. I see Busa managing to close up on Ray Alfalla, whilst meanwhile as they cross the line at 29.9 versus a 29.8, and they only have a 0.4 of a second difference between Michael Conti and Ryan Michaeluza. So we'll see if they could perhaps close out, or perhaps you never know what could happen with all the action that's going on between the position 5s on back.
And there's a lot going on. If anything were to happen up front, there's a handful of drivers that would be waiting to pounce. We've seen 2 very close calls on this stint alone, both of them coming out of turn number 2. But Ryan Luza is going to have an opportunity, Tim, to battle for this race win. The gap is now down to just 0.3 of a second. He did a pretty good job on Busa, but I think Busa might have used up some of his equipment trying to hold him off for the couple of laps before that, because once the 1 got by, Alfalla got by pretty quickly, and they made quick work of him. That 5 of Michael Conti is going to make that peak Ford Fusion as wide as you've ever seen, and Luza's going to have to work for this one. 143 laps now down, gap just to 0.3.
You got to remember, it's been a while since Michael Conti's been to victory lane, and you mentioned it. He's going to fight for this win, but he went a little high down in 1 and 2. The 1 of Ryan Luza made some time up. Conti still has about 2 car lengths or so on the 1 of Luza, but he can't afford to lose any more time. You better believe if the 1 car does get up to the back bumper, or does get side by side with Conti, we're going to see a show. Remember a couple of weeks ago back at Pocono Raceway where everything went crazy in the last couple laps? We had a couple of the leaders, a couple of the front runners take each other out on the last lap. We might very well see that again. Save your seat, it might get a little bit crazy here.
This time by 5 laps to go. If a caution comes out inside of the final 5 laps, the field running order at the time of the caution would determine the winner. So if you're Luza, there is no waiting to the last lap to make it pretty. It is go time. On the bumper, 5 laps to go from New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Conti, Luza. Luza gonna look to the inside. The 5 now deviating from his line, went to the bottom to protect.
And we saw him perhaps a couple of weeks ago on a different surface and a different track on dirt racing. We saw a race unlike we'd seen before, a drag race to the absolute finish of the line. I've seen a couple of drag races so far. Of course, that hasn't meant anything so far, of course. When we get to that final lap, will Ryan Michaeluza be able to drag race Michael Conti? Will that inside line still hold? Everyone's been single file for long enough. I'm not sure if perhaps the heat is going to be there. Luza, he's way on the outside. He cuts way to the inside. Is this perhaps where he pulls alongside? No, he ends up losing a little bit of traction as they head their way towards corner number 3.
Last season, the 5 of Conti was 1 turn away from a checkered flag at Watkins Glen. He got a bump into the tires and he didn't get the race. Here comes Luza. Bump at a turn number 4. Side by side. 3 laps to go. And now the 1 has the preferred position. Tight into corner number 1. The 5 going to get forced up the hill. Luza trying to get by. He got him for the race lead.
And the 5 of Michael Conti gives him a glancing blow along the side, but now it's Luza up in front. Can Conti get back to his back bumper? It might be easier said than done right now. The 5 trying to chase down the 1, but that's all it was. Ryan Luza had to muscle his way to get by the 5. He used the bumper, and then in the next corner, he kind of shoved him up a little bit and got the lead position. He's only got 2 laps to make sure it happens and try to lock down his 3rd win of the season. You know, by the way, Alfalla's closing in on Conti. He might not get there for position number 2, but we'll see if the 2 car can get up on the wheel here.
It was about as well executed on behalf of the 1 as you could guess. Caution flag flies. Any last hope for Michael Conti to challenge for the race lead are shut down. White flag does come out, but it is going to be alongside the yellow. And as I said at 5 to go, there's no guarantee that you get all of those final 5 laps to race this thing out. Luza made sure not to wait until the last minute. A caution flag involving Duval and Ottinger in quarter number 2. Check things up just about 15 seconds shy of the white flag, and in all fairness, I don't think Michael Conti had enough to get back to him, but it's going to leave him wondering, what if I just had one or two more shots at him? But for Ryan Luza, going to pick up on earlier in the season, went back-to-back into second and third races on the year, winning at Las Vegas and at Auto Club. Comes into tonight towards the bottom of the top 8 in the championship. He will get win number 3 on 2017. Ryan Luza, your winner from New Hampshire.
An exciting duel between these two guys, lap after lap. It ended up going to Ryan Luza at the results of a little bit of a bump and run off of 4. Exactly what you would want to see here at a mile-long track like this, where no cars really had any sort of damage. That's what you wanted to see. It ended up going to Ryan Luza. We have to remember he was involved with that incident earlier on, pretty much halfway through the race with, I believe it was Ottinger, and that was a fairly scary moment, and he managed to recover that, and now he is going to victory lane.
It looks a lot better than most of the other cars on track, but you do see some remnants of that contact with the damage on the front of that #1 Racer Booth Graphic Solutions for Diffusion. Luza coming into this season hoping to get himself in a position to fight for a championship. But again, the wins are going to help him, especially with all those good results when it comes to the drop that gets factored in. But on the points, into tonight was only 10 points above the cut line. He needs to finish this regular season strong, just as he started it. And while a win does not lock him in, it would give him what would be 9 bonus points now if he does make it to the opening round.
Yeah, he did a great job here this evening and made that move on Michael Conti to lock up the victory. And as you mentioned, gives him a little bit of insurance when we go towards the playoff cutoff. And oh, by the way, Christian Chalner, who was on the other side of that cutoff heading into this evening, finished in position number 12. The bubble driver of Derek Bordeaux finished in 39th place. So we're going to have another shakeup following this New Hampshire Motor Speedway race heading into the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
We'll talk points a little bit later on into our post-race show. Before we step aside, let's take a look at top to bottom at your RaceSpotTV full race results for round number 10. Ryan Luza gets win number 3 on the season. The bump and around of Michael Conti coming to 3 laps to go gives the number 5 a second place result. Ray Alfala comes home 3rd tonight. Bat Busa 4th, and with PJ Sturgis in 5th. We'll be chatting with all of them in just a moment. Nick Ottinger comes home 6th place tonight after starting up front, and Bobby Zelensky probably wanted a little bit more. Not a bad points night, though, to come home in 7th. Great nights for the likes of Byron Daly, who comes home in the number 8 position, and just behind him coming home in 9th position all the way from the back at the start of this thing, Ryan Lowe to come home inside of the top 10 just behind the Marcus Richardson rounds out those top 10 drivers.
Chris Overland found himself in trouble at least a couple of times today. He ends up pulling out an 11th place finish after starting 26th. Christian Challier following him 12th. Timmy Hill will finish in 13th position. Jake Sturgis will finish in 14th. Dylan Duvall up and down the field, I'd have to say twice over for that number 42. He'll come home in 15th. Nolan Scott in 16th position. Adam Gilliland in the 17th position. David Rattler in 18th. Jake Nichols in 19th. And Brian Schoenberg will finish in 20th.
Phil Diaz will bring the 94 home in 21st position. Trey Edson 22nd. Alex Bergeron ran in the top 10 a little bit this evening. Comes home with 23rd. 24th is Tyler Hill, and Casey Tucker scored as the last driver on the lead lap in P25. Jimmy Mullis had such a great run earlier within the top 5. Going to finish 1 lap down in 26th. Brian Blackford led some laps here this evening. Going to finish 27th, 2 laps down. Davies and Johnson 28th, 29th, 3 laps down. And then, Evan, you get into some of the guys that had some issues, including Corey Vincent, 13 laps down in 30th.
Yeah, rest of these drivers more than double digits down and out of this race when the checkered flag flew. That includes 31st position, Chandler Kuzik, Kenny Humpy, who comes home in 32nd. 33rd, Mitchell Hunt, Chris Shearburn in 34th position, with Logan Clampett coming home in 35th. 36th tonight for Zach Novak. 37th is Will Cooley. 38th, Andrew Fayash, with Derek Bordeaux and Taylor Hurst rounding through the top 40. You've got Joe Lottarello and Brandon Schmidt, 41 and 42. Big driver to note there where Derek Bordeaux came into tonight, final transfer spot in championship 39th, is going to change that. So we'll take this opportunity, step aside. When we come back to the New Hampshire Motor Speedway, we will be talking with your top finishers. We'll talk points, and we'll preview the final 2 regular season races still to come before the playoffs. You're watching the 2017 NASCAR PEAK Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing on RaceSpotTV.
Hi guys, I'm Scott Speed, driver of this amazing Volkswagen Beetle GRC car. I got good news for the iRacing fam. We got this coming in. I'm currently working on it myself personally to make sure that it is as accurate as possible. With the addition of dirt and now this mean car, it is gonna be so fun. And it's gonna be available free to all the iRacing members. Personally, I can't wait to get out there and race you guys on it.
Welcome back to the New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the 10th round of the 2017 NASCAR PEAK Antifreeze Series, powered by iRacing, RaceSpotTV, and iRacing Live. Happy to still have you with us. Evan Posocco along with Cam Walsh, Tim Terry, topside with you as we wait to go trackside to talk with our top finishers and the drivers in which we will be chatting with. Cam, we're a part of that exciting battle at the end. You're taking some second looks at the bump for the race win at lap 147, coming out of 4, just enough of a nudge on behalf of Luza. Doesn't rack the 5, just gets him up about half a lane, got to the bottom, forced him a little high in 1, and that's about as clean and well executed as a bumper run as you'll get.
Yeah, it was right about the mid-apex, right between 3 and 4. He just nudged him just enough, right where you're supposed to be getting on the accelerator, sort of delayed that number 5 just enough to get a wheel in. Once he got a wheel in, they went into 1 and 2. They almost made contact going through 1 and 2, and that's how Luza ended up getting onto the inside. Conti had a back on out, and he gave him a nice little swipe at the end of that net, is how Ryan Michael Luza ended up taking the victory here at New Hampshire.
He is no stranger to victory lane, but for the third time this season, we will talk with him as your winner tonight for the New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Ryan Lewis at number 3 on the season. We are with the driver of that number 1 machine. Ryan, congratulations and welcome back to victory lane, my friend. That one was an exciting race. No doubt all night that you guys had the speed, qualify on pole. We're up there, but I'll tell you what, that strategy made you work for it at the end. You had to come from multiple seconds back on what ended up being the longest green flag stretch of the night with the fresh tires. Talk us through that whole march to the front and, of course, what everybody will be talking about and rewatching for the days and weeks to come, and that is that move at 3 to go.
Yeah, the race was absolutely crazy. I didn't even pit by choice. We didn't fill up the car on the pit stop before, and I wasn't going to make it on gas. So I had to come down and pit and at least take 2, and somehow that won us the race. So we had really good long run speed, and I was pretty upset there when I got in. Me and Bobby made contact off of 4 because I really thought it cost me a chance at the race, and somehow it didn't. The car was just really, really good. The bottom came in, or at least the middle groove, and the car was amazing. It wasn't tight like Busa and Conti were getting tight towards the end. And just able to give them that little bit of tap, and I wasn't even that I was trying to. I rolled the center so much better. Got to thank them too for racing me clean, and that was an absolutely amazing race. I had a blast.
The tricky thing for you, and I think we might have seen it a little bit there at the end, where at one point it did look like that the 2 maybe would have been a little bit quicker out of the 2 of you, and then at the end you were able to stay in front of him and pull away from him, subsequently putting yourself as the fastest driver come the end of this race. You're chasing these guys 3 seconds back, you get to 2 seconds back, and then you clear the guys that were in 4th and 3rd in front of you, and you finally get up to 2nd spot. How are you able to manage trying to close that gap in? Because you didn't get to the race lead with much time to spare. Got there with about 5-4 laps to go in this race. So how are you able to manage that gap while not pushing the tires? Because I know when you know you have the speed, it's so very tempting, especially at a place like New Hampshire, where it's very easy to slide that car off too deep into the corner, to overdrive it, to try to get that little bit extra. So how'd you stay disciplined, keep the head screwed on straight to be able to walk that in there in time and keep the tires on you, so by the time you got there, you were able to finally make that move and not have nothing left?
Really, I got to attribute that to my place in points right now. I gotten wrecked out of 3 straight races, and I'm sitting here basically on the bubble. So, like, when I was sitting there in 3rd, I was thinking, do I even challenge these guys? Is it worth it, for the chance to wreck? Because it's really not, in a points position-wise to make the chase. So I was just sitting back there, trying to save what I could, but still run them down in case something happened. And we just really, really had the long run speed. I think we had it all night. We just didn't have a chance to show it with all the cautions flying. So luckily, the race really played into our hands right there, and even with the contact with Bobby, we were able to keep it under control. Glad no caution came out there, too, because that would have ruined it. So just everything really fell right there at the end of the race, even though we had some misfortune. So really, really fun.
Well, the one positive, I guess, is if you have the bad luck like you were just talking about, you have to assume that at some point things will go right for you, and the stars aligned for you come the end of this one. Talking about the points, we noted, close it in on the end of this race, you guys have 3 wins now on the season. That puts you at the most out of anybody so far this season. Broke a tie between you, Ray, and Bobby to get up to the top of that. But the wins really don't mean anything until we get to the playoffs. Then in that opening round, you'll be able to get 3 bonus points apiece. So you'd have 9 as it sits now. But you still got to stay inside of the top 8. And you're only 10 points above that cut line into tonight. So we talked at the very start of the broadcast about drivers who are in the transferring positions now, maybe not making those little bit of extra moves, fighting for wins, and, just take the top 5. Just get the points and get on with it, as opposed to the drivers who are on the outside saying, I have to get this win every single week, see what we can do, and if that doesn't happen, then we have no shot at it. For you guys, it didn't look like, despite that, I'm sure the temptation was there to not want to risk it, and, getting in that close call with Zelensky there, the car got roughed up a little bit, but it worked out in the end. Not rolling over and being happy with the top 3, still wanting that little bit more, knowing full well, though, that if you get into an accident going for the race lead, that would put you back even further than if you just said, hey, I'm fine with P2 points.
Yeah, it was a really tough decision to make, but in the end, the speed that the car had and, the tires just was too much, and it was, I don't know, a 10th almost every single lap faster, and at that point, if you get there, you got to give it a shot. I wasn't going to do anything reckless, so I'd made up my mind on that. just get what I could. If I got the win, then we got it, and somehow we got it. So that was awesome.
You guys started off this regular season really good with those back-to-back wins in the second and third races, Las Vegas and Fontana. So the objective is going to be to close off this regular season well, avoid problems, make that transfer into the playoffs, and then go to work. Indianapolis Motor Speedway and then Michigan International Speedway, the two final tracks. How is your confidence level going into those ones?
I'm not too confident going into Indy, actually. I feel like it's one of my worst tracks. So I'm going to have to put in a lot of work to Indy, and this run actually helps a lot. So we'll see on that. This is really the first race of this build that we've had winning speed, I feel like. So the other two wins that we had was on the previous build before the new tire model and the aero change. So really, really good that we got this thing figured out and we have the speed to race with those guys. So hopefully we carry this into the chase and set ourselves up for Homestead.
You guys put the right foot forward tonight, and you continue on a path that will get you into this first ever installment of the playoffs in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. Ryan, it's the third win on the season. You deserve some time to take a bow for that one. We'll let you get out of here, though. I know that it was a long and grueling night dealing with all those restarts. Before we do the sponsors, the shout-outs, the routine. It makes it happen.
I got to thank Racer Boost Graphic Solutions. It's been a long time since I've done this, by the way. So got to thank Racer Boost Graphic Solutions, any websites, hero cards, stuff you need for like that, real racing, even sim racing. People want to do that. Fast Track Sims, any full motion rigs, dirt rigs. They make everything for sim racing. Check them out. And thanks to Blake Reynolds for spotting and Derek Bordeaux, my other teammate on SimWorks.
That is your race winner tonight for New Hampshire Motor Speedway for the third time in 2017. Ryan Luza, a winner in the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. Ryan, always a pleasure chatting with you, and it was good to have you back up here. So congratulations. Best of luck for you and the guys going forward into the next 2 weeks. Maybe we'll chat soon.
Thanks, Evan.
That is it from your race winner tonight. Driver who comes home in second was a big part of that battle. Michael Conti needed 3 more laps, or rather 3 less laps to hang on to that one, Tim. The fans were rooting for the number 5. It is a good result, but I know that he wanted just that little bit extra.
It's a little better result than what we had at Sonoma Raceway, but Mike, let's talk about that battle for the win between you and Ryan Luza. What's your take on that?
Well, before I get to that, Tim, and it's good to talk to you like this again with a good result, there's been some misconceptions about what happened at Sonoma, about what blew the motor up, and I'd like to clear that up now that I've got a chance to do that. That was not a double downshift. I used an H pattern. I was going down into, I don't know where that was, 5, 6, 7, 8.5, whatever corner that was, and downshifted at its typical downshift point, and it blew up with no warning. And still had oil and water pressure after that too. So that was a freak thing. So did not double downshift. Just wanted to clear that up. But as for tonight, that was an exciting race. It reminded me of 2012 and 13 when the series had a lot more attrition, and we had a good short run car, as you could see there at the end, but just didn't have quite enough for Luza. So good job to him. I wish that caution would have come out a couple laps sooner. We might have had it, but good for him. He did it pretty well. He didn't rough me up too bad, so that was cool. Racing with Boost was really cool. That should have been fun to watch. I think we raced each other really clean and never really touched each other. And I thought the slide job off at 2 was going to get the old peak number 5 victory, but came up a couple laps short. But it's a good result. It's not bad. It's better than what we've seen, so I can't really complain about that.
And considering with the amount of cautions that we had this evening, you started in position number 24, but you wasted little time getting up into the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, the car was phenomenal. Rolling the bottom in 1 and 2 before anybody even thought about getting down there. I mean, we were picking off positions like they were sitting still, just able to really attack the corner and cut the corner off and get up under people, and that would screw up their exit, and we would just fly by people. So I knew the car was going to be pretty good. I didn't know if it was going to be quite that good, and I think if things would have went a little bit differently, maybe if I didn't race boosters so hard, I would have had some more tires left, maybe we would have had it. But either way, it's the best car I've had in a long time. We found some things this week, put a lot of time into this race, and hopefully they transfer over to Indy and everywhere else. But It's good. I mean, I cannot complain the way this season's gone. I think we've probably given away about 100 points, which would put us in the chase right now, or playoffs. But we're not, so we're just kind of going at it at a different angle, and yeah, I think it's working. So just glad to get Peak and everybody back up front. You know, they've supported me for a long time, and good to finally get them back up there. So I'm proud of that.
We saw Tyler a couple of years ago make a comeback to win a championship. We've got 2 races left before the playoff cutoff, and without the drop, you're sitting about 50 points back. Is there something? Do we see another miraculous comeback this time for the 5 team to try to make it into the playoffs?
Well, that would be a good way to go out here. You know, I think 50 points is a lot, and I think without some help from others that are on the bubble, I don't really think it's realistic, and I consider myself pretty realistic. But, I mean, the only thing we can do is just keep putting effort into it like we've been doing, keep improving on what we've got. And like I said, I think we took a big step forward this week, and I hope that it works at Indy. But you know, if we keep running well and we keep putting ourselves in good positions, we'll hopefully get a win before the end of this year, because who knows what we're doing next year. And maybe if we run well, maybe we'll get some attrition like we saw tonight, and maybe we'll get in it. You know, I don't know. But you know, what I'm hoping for is another win. It's been about 3 years now since my last win, so it's been a while. If we can get Brian a win, that would be great. I think he's been waiting like 6 or 7 years, so it'd be cool to see him win one. So, you know, whatever positives we can take here out of this season, you know, we're definitely turning it around. And for only having 2 people working on this car compared to a lot of the other teams where they're stacked, I think running that well says a lot about Brandon Hastings and what he does. It says a lot about Brian, and I think it says that we work well. The 3 of us work pretty well together, and we've gotten some help from Ottinger here the last couple of weeks, so you know, can't thank him enough for that, because that's got us in the right direction. But we've stuck it through. It's been a crummy season, but I think we're starting to turn it around, so I'm proud of that.
Before we let you go, anybody else you want to say hello to, and any closing thoughts before we head to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway?
Yeah, I mean, once again, Peak, thank you for doing all you do for myself and the series. Going to Indy in a couple weeks, I think we're going to be really good. I think what we found here is going to work if we can tune on it a little bit. And just my goal right now is not to get into the final 8. The goal is to win a race, because, like I said, I don't really know what I'm doing next year. I feel like I say that at the end of every year, and probably most of the rest of the field does as well. But it's pretty up in the air right now, and I think Hastings is pretty up in the air. So we want to get a win while we're still here and still running competitively. So that's the goal, get myself or Brian a win, and I think Indy is a good track for both of us, so we'll see what happens there.
And there's Michael Conti coming home with position number 2 this evening, 1 spot short of taking that checkered flag here at Loudon. And I believe Cam Walsh is next, but Cam, where's Ray?
I haven't necessarily found him yet, but who I have found was our 4th place finisher, the number 34 car, the Toyota Camry of Matt Busa. So instead we'll ask him a couple of questions. Matt Busa, he'll finished in 4th position, just a couple of seconds behind the leader. Obviously, though, that was under the caution flag. This whole race, Matt, it's been an interesting one, to say the least, but there was a lot of times where you had to focus on those restarts. You had some stints with some really old tires, and we had quite a bit of drama throughout the field. Take me through your day here.
Yeah, it started out surprisingly pretty well. I wasn't able to really work on qualifying trim at all much, and was able to get second, almost got the pole there. And then, well, first off, New Hampshire is my favorite track on the service. It's my best track, I would think. In 2014, I lost a race here by like 0.02. So ever since then, I've wanted to get redemption and maybe get my first win here. And it was looking good for a lot of the race. I had the strategy going in that I was only going to change the left side tires once. And I wanted to do that about halfway through the race. And lucky enough, there was a caution, I think, right at the halfway mark. So I pitted when nobody else did, with the mindset that I wouldn't be pitting anymore for the rest of the race. And then once everybody else pit, then I was up front. And unfortunately, it went green the entire way, so I couldn't get any heat cycles on my tires. So on 75 lap low tires there at the end, I just could not hold off Conti and lose on. Just wanted to let Ray go because I got to apologize to him again for our incident on the backstretch there. That was just a misjudgment. I thought he was going to come up and defend the position, and he held his line like he really should have, and I just misjudged it and clipped him.
Yeah, and well, he ended up storming back and coming and finishing in third. So either way, though, this is 2 weeks in a row. Well, 2 races in a row, I guess. You finished at Sonoma in 4th position. You finished here at New Hampshire in the 4th position. We're going to Indianapolis next, and obviously the legendary Indianapolis. Much bigger speedway, but races very much differently from New Hampshire, and gotta say that one is going to be interesting in its own right because it's starting to get to be crunch time.
Yeah, I'm not sure how far out of the chase I am. I know without drops I'm about 40 points, which means I have to gain 20 the next 2 races, which I think is actually exactly what I gained this race, but I'm still going to need a lot of help from the guys around 7th through 9th. They're going to have some bad luck in order for me to get in, I believe. But we'll see. We'll still hopefully put together some top 5 runs the next 2 races, and wherever it lands us, it lands us.
Well, Matt, anybody you would like to give a shout-out to before we let you go?
Yeah, I'll give a shout-out to the teams that help put the setups together. Gale Force Racing for all the work we do. NX Racing. We had some ideas being thrown around with Conti and his guys. And then I'd like to thank Zach Hudson for spotting this whole season. He's done an amazing job and helped with a really good strategy call there to get me the track position to have a chance to win the race.
Well, thanks very much for hopping down with us here on RaceSpotTV, and hopefully we'll see you at Indy.
Yep, thank you.
So that's Matt Busa, the number 34 Toyota Camry. And next, we are going to go straight to PJ Sturgis. He is with Tim Terry.
Yeah, PJ Sturgis comes home in position number 5, but had a little ways to get there. Let's talk about coming from 39th all the way to 5th.
Yeah, that was a wild one. Took some strategy there for a couple of 2-tire stops to get up the Sam Maxwell Ford Fusion up there into the top 5, but once we got up there we were able to hold on to it. So yeah, really good night. Was been sick for a little while and wasn't even sure I would race tonight, but managed to stick it out and did way better than I was ever expecting to going into this one. But congrats to Ryan on the win.
Talk about how big pit strategy was here, especially with a bunch of cautions early in this race.
Yeah, early on it was kind of free for all there in the pits. Guys were taking 4, 2, no tires, fuel only. So I kind of stuck to the 2-tire strategy there at the start just for track position, and the car was really good on short runs, not so much on long runs, which kind of showed at the end, but it really helped at the start of the race to have such a good short run cars because it allowed me to save a little bit and keep the left sides from wearing as much, so we could just take 2 every time, and really helped our track position. So yeah, that was a lot of fun out there.
You've had an up and down season. Second top 5 of the year in 8 starts. How big of a momentum boost is this heading into the second half of the season?
Oh yeah, this is big for sure. Got Indy coming up, which is one of my better tracks, and then fortunately this year it hasn't gone well enough to make the chase, but you know, that's the way this thing goes sometimes. But yeah, looking forward to it, and I think we'll have maybe at least one driver from our team to get into the chase if Logan can catch a little bit of luck here at Michigan and Indy, and that'd be real good for the team to get him in there going forward. I'd like to thank all my sponsors, SimLab, Sam Maxwell Customs, and AccuForce for all their support. Along with iAnalyze, it's good to have these guys in the car every week, and it's fun to be able to have these good finishes here to kind of support what they do and get their names out there.
So before we let you go, can we put this thing into victory lane in Indianapolis?
Oh, with a little bit of luck, hopefully I didn't use it all up tonight, but I think we can. If tonight was any showing, you think we'll have a lot better car over at Indy.
There you go. There's PJ Sturgis coming home in position number 5 at his home track for the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series here in Loudon, New Hampshire. Great race overall, Evan, and a lot of excitement, a lot of action at the start of this one, but a long green flag run at the end. A little bit of excitement for the lead. Congratulations to Ryan Luza, who once again picks up another victory.
It was very much a tale of two different races, and that second race really being in the final 50 laps of this thing, Cam. We knew that when we got to the home stretch, regardless if it was off of restarts or something, we were going to see a good battle for the race lead. But talking with Luza, kind of forced into the position based on the way all the cautions were coming very frequently in the opening 100 laps, kind of found himself on an odd strategy, needed fuel, came down, got tires while he was down there. That just happened to be the call that ended up putting him in the position that he could go out there and win this race. So kind of inadvertently affecting the end result in this thing, but very different from what we saw early on at the end. We saw fantastic racing all the way up until that 3-lap to-go battle for the race win late.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, we saw everybody come down pit lane after the first 10 laps of racing when we had that yellow, and I think we kind of gave each other a little bit of a look going, oh boy, I mean, if the tires aren't lasting that long to where these guys are wanting to get tires after 10 laps, that's not going to be too well. But ended up, some of the top runners ended up finishing with somewhere in the ballpark of 50, 60, 70 laps ran on some of these tires, and that is impressive indeed, where these tires they seem to keep on going. I mean, lap times between someone like Matt Busa had rarely seen pit lane was quite similar to people who had been in pit lane pretty much all day in every caution. So that's an interesting thing to take away from it. And of course, next time we're going to be going to Indianapolis, an entirely different ball game altogether.
And the championship standings may be completely different, Tim, going into that one. Zelensky outside of tonight, still the championship leader. Ray Alfala, Ryan Luza, Logan Clamp at your top 4. Corey Vincent, Marcus Richardson, but now Christian Challoner and Zach Novak in 7 and 8. Dylan Duval finding himself 13 points out. Derek Bordeaux falls to 15 points out. Of course, that not factoring in the drops.
Yeah, when you look at that, Dylan Duval was up in the top 10 at the end of that one and then had that little slide at the end. And there's, you look back on your season, there's 10 points that I could have had. You look back at other races and you count a couple of other points that you could have had to be up there with some late race misfortune. But Challoner had a great run, did what he had to do, was on the outside looking in, coming in this evening, and is now in the top 8. Got some drivers that are looking a little bit better, but there's still 2 races to come. There's the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and then how about Michigan coming up in a little while as well to close off the regular season portion of this year, this NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series. There's still a lot that can happen. We had a wild race tonight, but I don't think the wild and the woolly has left us. We got 2 more races left to go, and we got some drivers that are really in dire straits trying to get up into the top 8.
And with all of that being said, round number 10 from New Hampshire falls into our rearview mirror. As always, we want to thank you for being a part of this special presentation of RaceSpotTV on iRacing Live and the Motor Racing Network. For more information about iRacing's World Championship Series, you can go online to wcs.iracing.com. On behalf of our entire Tuesday night team, camera angles provided by Istvan Vallo, broadcast CG by Simon Grossman, Kevin Papey, their entire team, Andy Warder on the graphics, and of course, Will Vincent, Hugo Louise, the entire team at RaceSpotTV who anchor our coverage of all of iRacing's World Championship Series, and for the team tonight. For Tim Terry, Cam Walsh, and myself, Evan Posocco, I want to thank you for joining us tonight and congratulate Ryan Luza on win number 3 on the year. Now the most out of anyone so far this season. 2 races to go before the playoffs, so we hope that you join us next time out for round number 11 from the famed Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the 1st of August. That race and every race at the 2017 NASCAR Peak Antifreeze Series powered by iRacing can be found right here on RaceSpotTV. We will see you at the Brickyard. Good night.